Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the sixth major. Sweden, we're live in Gävle, and you're seeing our beautiful Yggdrasil is in the middle between the teams, and we have our final matchup of today. So how about we introduce our teams? It's Ninjas in Pyjamas, the Spacestation Gaming. Our LATAM representatives, Brazilian team and world champions, it's Ninjas in Pyjamas!
Our reigning world champions come storming onto the stage as they're looking to redeem themselves after going into hibernation with a slow year, but they're looking to change that here at the Sweden Major.
They do have an opponent against them that they faced off against in the past. Who are they? Our North American representatives, former world champions themselves, it's Spacestation Gaming!
Just like their rivals tonight, they have tasted the tippity top of the board, and they'll be looking to go once more against their old school rivals of SSG.
Incredible matchup that we get to witness here in the quarterfinals between two former world champions. Well, what have we gotten ourselves into? Let's see what the runes have to say.
Welcome back to the Longhouse, where we find what is the truth brought to us by the runes that never lie. And that's always a big part to play. Space Station versus NIP. Who do those above us think will take this victory? A reroll, first of all, a tight game. And again. And again. And NIP are the victors, the Ninjas in Pyjamas, the reigning champions from SI, the team that were almost entirely undefeated in the run. They have a habit of never giving up, never stopping and fighting all the way to the end. I think the runes are on the mark.
I have to agree with them there. Just the one game they lost was the game that did not matter that much for them. So, well, the runes speak the truth.
Do you think the reigning champions will find a fight, or will the only remaining North American team be the ones to finally dismantle them?
I think that when it comes to our team, they should be afraid of our teamwork and our individual skill. We have a very well-rounded roster. Each player has very specific strengths when it comes to entry fragging, clutching, that kind of thing. They got to be ready for everything.
Are playing really good, and we like to play really aggressive, adapt a lot, and study other things, and they can counter things like gunfights or gunshots. We are really good right now, individual and the collective as a whole, and yeah, that's it.
Looking over NIP, I would say that they're very similar to us. They have a very well-rounded team as well. All their players are very, very talented, star players with their own strengths as well. They also are very, I would say, structured compared to some of the other LATAM teams, and they use team play as probably one of their biggest strong suits, so I think it'll be a good battle between us.
I think the region is not that good right now, the NA, but they are a really good team. They have really good individual skills, and they do a lot of clutches, and that's something we need to take care about. I would say to my rivals SSG that we have a good game like the 2020 SI finals.
To our quarterfinal opponents NIP, I would say just don't underestimate us and yeah, be ready.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the analyst desk to break things down for our final quarterfinal here. Live again on Friday evening. I'm Milos the Medic, your host for the show. With me are Jess and Keeney, and we're going to talk in detail about what these two teams, NIP and SSG, have to bring to the table. world champions. Former world champion for SSG, current world champions for NIP. And last they played against one another in a major matchup was the grand final of 6th Invitational 2020. One of the best grand finals and matches we've ever had in Rainbow Six. Now they face off in the quarters, so you know it's only going to get better from here. Let's talk about their rosters. First up is NIP. Kini, I look to you for some info on this.
All right, let's talk about the reigning world champions, Ninjas in Pyjamas. If we look at the Mexico Major, didn't do too hot. But you know what? They've come in here, they've smashed their groups. Psycho especially has been super consistent across all groups. Every single game he's shown up, not necessarily at the top of the scoreboard, but he's just there. He's never really had a bad game per se. And I mean, just look at that round evolution. They've had +2, +5, +3, +4, +2, and then they lost to BDS with a +3. Not that big of a loss. And they just seem so confident coming into now. They really seem to have learned the new recoils.
Oh no,
exactly
there's not a chance we're bringing that onto the desk. Well, now that you've said it, and maybe they have learned the recoils, I sort of mentioned before that I kind of felt they were in hibernation. I keep bringing up Ace of Pirate, our beautiful colleague, who keeps saying to us, well, they just do this kind of thing, Jess. They like only want to show up when it matters to them, and the Mexico Major was a bit of a blip on that kind of strategy that they like to employ. So okay, have the Bears awoken? Sure. I'm yet to be convinced, but I did put them on my predictions, so maybe I'm convinced just enough.
All right, well, let's talk about their opponents. Near Airport is definitely a thing, but not SSG. I mean, they've been flying off to the moon in this case. An impressive team so far in the tournament, Jess.
Yeah, SSG can't be near Airport because they use a rocket instead. So for them, they're on a completely different plane, a completely different, evolution of how they move forward. The big thing for me is that coming into this major, I was very well convinced that SSG would actually be North America's only hope. They've been the only team to come into the playoffs. They have proven that. I would say that they have a bit of a rigidity about them, unfortunately, and they're actually a lot like Ninjas in Pyjamas in the fact that they like to counter-strat their opponents, and today they're going up against a team that also likes to counter-strat their opponents, and I think very quickly both of these teams are going to learn that you can't counter-strat each other when you're both just running into counter adaptations over and over and over again. It's like a vicious cycle that you can't leave, so I hope that rigidity is something that SSG moves a little bit away from today, and just play off that game sense, play off the fact that you are some of the best players in the world.
NIP are definitely no slouches, and like Jess was just saying, for them, maybe Mexico was just that blip. When you go off that high of winning the Invitational.
Yeah, and I think just like the Team 1 game versus Rogue, I do think that this game in particular is also going to have very heavy focus on the mental of each teams.
Okay.
And I think especially when it comes to that, we're going to see if the LATA mental can actually hold up this game. And I know for a fact personally, back when we were playing the meme bite, I played against Rampy and I managed to rattle his mental a little bit. I brought the Clash, I brought the Blitz, and Rampy did not like that.
NIP can definitely play shields. We've seen that in the past. But we have a head-to-head for this one.
Let's go.
The two top players from these two teams. So how about we take a look at the stats and what they say. And it's Psycho and Rampy, which actually fits perfectly. You guys, man, it's almost like people here actually know what they're talking about. Jess, please shed some light on what's going on.
I mean, we turned around to the beautiful CGG. Shout out to the CGG team who has been just absolutely giving us everything we've asked for. And we said, who are the two highest rated players in the groups? And they've turned around and they said, all right, from NIP it's Psycho, and from SSG it's Rampy. Now, okay, when you're looking at it, Psycho's looking so much more impressive. It's almost like one of those seesaws, and then, Psycho's on one end and Rampy's on the other, and unfortunately, he's not pulling his weight on that one. So I think when you're looking at that, the KD difference is the big kicker for me, and there's a lot of entries on the side, but they don't necessarily do the same role all the time, so that's where the differences will come in some of those stats.
I think another very important thing to highlight is with Rampy, that man, he does not break. If he's in a 1v5, it's his world.
Yeah.
He does not care. And sure, like Psycho might bring a bigger KD, but at the end of the day, it's not really the KD that matters, it's if you win these rounds or not.
It's not about the size of the KD. That's very true. Well. Kini, Jess, let's take a look at our map bans. Again, a 7-map pool, but we were playing best of 3s all through until a grand final, best of 5 series. And it's ban, pick, ban, and then decider. We go first to Chalet, then Coastline, and our decider is Villa. SSG got Chalet through against NIP in this, and I'm going to ask around this whole pick that we saw, all three maps. Kenny, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a very interesting set of maps, that's for sure. I mean, starting off with Chalet, that's been a bit of a interesting map if we look back at the games, especially with Team 1. Sorry, FaZe versus BDS, my bad. That was a bit of a doozy, looking at the way that FaZe played on that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how NIP handled their sort of LATAM playstyle on that map.
It's a good point you raised, because NA have been very excellent region overall on Chalet over its development ever since it was added into the pool. But Jess, what are yours on this?
I mean, I was going back through my notes because I saw Chalet and I went quiet. Usually I'm the one to like reach out and be like, I have something to say about this. And then I was like, hang on, I gotta push my notes all the way back to like July just to give you an indication as to how SSG even is on this map. And I have 3 indications here, but this is all the way back in NAL Stage 2. So how recent is that? I'm going to put a little bit of a asterisk behind it and say not too recent. And so as a result, I think, speaking of hibernation of teams, I think this map has been in hibernation.
All right. Well, Chalet is our first map in this series. And SSG are starting off on defense.
Okay,
As
that's bad.
They picked the map. Yes, usually it is. They picked the map, and NIP picked the starting side. Say that, however, like Kini mentioned, highlighted early on, we saw FaZe BDS. And that was a 3-3 at the half, and BDS started off on the defense, and look at where we ended up at the end of it. So maybe not so great at calling it. Final thought, yeah?
I do think that SSG can be very scary on a map like Chalet. It's very methodical. SSG is a very methodical team. So I think that map could really suit them well. The question is if they can handle NIP on it.
The question is usually, can anybody handle NIP? Really, very good points. Kini, Jess, thank you very much. Let's then toss it to game. Chalet is ready for us, ladies and gentlemen. It's the French Alps, and we got, well, who is it? Oh, it's Intero and Pengu. Guide us through it, boys.
All right, Milos, thank you so very much. This is the very final quarterfinal of the day, and there's a lot on the line here. Nicholas, the last team from North America, and the last team from Latin America that isn't FaZe Clan. It's a World Championship rematch. The last time these teams played a best-of-3 was for the World Championships at SI 2020, and boy, oh boy, the amount of pressure on the shoulders of both of these teams is immense.
Absolutely, but at the same time, Parky, I think both of these teams are up for the challenge, up for the task, and I think the maps that we got are actually very, very interesting. We have not really seen either NIP or SSG showcase neither their Chalet or their Coastline, which means this is something they've been hiding, and we know they can play them as they've been brought out now here in the quarters. But the question comes, who shows up better when there's nothing to prepare for? As of recent, it was not played in the group stage by either team.
I mean, the desk went through the last time these maps were played by the teams in their respective regions, but before we got into this matchup and before we got onto the stage, you and I actually discussed how we thought that map ban phase was going to go down. And I mean, who was expecting this? 2 of the maps that both of these teams either didn't want to play or teams didn't want to play against them, they hid the whole way through. And now we have this huge question mark here. With the way the day's been going, a 2-0 seems likely. Every single team that has won so far failed to need a third map to do it. If that's the case, the only map that these 2 teams have played on, which is Villa, which is that third map, in which Spacestation is a perfect 2-0, and Ninjas in Pyjamas are 0-1 against BDS, will be fascinating to watch. Oh my god, that is very, very close. 51% of you think that Spacestation will win versus 49% thinking Ninjas in Pyjamas, and there's not going to be a lot for us to go off of. The operator bans are going to be hugely important, and we'll start the ban phase now on our first map, Spacestation, starting on defense here on Chalet.
Yep, here we go. It's a fast one. Parky, they know what they want, and they will show us in a minute. Will it be the Thatcher? Yes, it will. Starting off with the comfort, as we always do. We all know that Thatcher's not going to make it to the party. He rarely, if ever, does. Now, NIP, do they target ban hot and cold on that Ying or the Bug, or will they go for something else? It is indeed the target ban. A wise choice, if you ask me, because I too would have said, you know what, the Ying is going to be a big problem because hot and cold and SSG are just so good at using that operator.
Valkyrie's good at join. We see the kind of menace that Valkyrie can be on a map like Chalet and on most maps, in fact. Curious choice, though, for this defensive ban on the side of Nip, because Valkyrie tends to be a very strong operator that the Brazilian team favors quite a lot. Echo is the final defender ban, and as you can see on the top of your screen, Thatcher, Ying, Valkyrie, and Echo will be unavailable for the entirety of this matchup. Now, if we talk about attacker-favored, defender-favored style maps. Through the group stages, there's been a bit of an upending of conventional wisdom here. There have been a lot of attacker-favored maps, and Chalet does tend to be historically one of the more attacker-friendly.
Yeah, absolutely correct, and I don't think this is going to be much different, to be honest. With the Valkyrie and the Echo both being gone, the only sort of information that you can really have on defense is the mirror, which Bosco is showcasing and sticking right now, and of course, the bulletproofs. But the thing is, SSG, they know a thing or two about information because they typically bring a bulletproof almost every single round. However, this time, Skies in the Mute will choose not to. He'll bring the C4 instead. The mirror window will be the only piece of information from the side of SSG. And I would argue, with the way that the operator bans went, I would almost favor NIP. NIP themselves are not dependent on the Ying. They don't typically play it a whole lot. However, SSG, they do. If something is going wrong, or if they want to make sure that it goes right, the Ying is typically the operator for SSG to enable that play. So I'm curious if they have a different operator up their sleeve to replace this operator, whether it be, let's say, the Capital, or, dare I say it, a Monty or a Shield or something funky.
Good amount of examples of this Mira play on the top floor comes from the North American League. Spacestation will be very well familiarized with this. We saw the Sonics do it in the group stages in particular. And when Mira does elude a ban in that ban phase, not always a common thing, it's nice to see what impact she can have in particular. That Mira window up by Chimney is going to be incredibly useful for holding top floor control. We'll see how quickly Nip can slice right through it. Once again, watch for how much the attackers can do here, because I suspect if Nip cannot get off to a strong start on attack and Spacestation takes a couple rounds, it might give us a good window into how these teams are going to play.
It certainly will, and we see NIP now not wanting to challenge directly onto that library hold with that mirror window being available from SSG. They choose to go in the basement. We see Pino holding down the flank, making sure no one's creeping around, but Skies might try and see if he can get a little bit cheeky, chooses not to, but NIP from a downstairs take as they will slowly start to figure out where the entry points can be for them, as SSG are pretty much all around the top floor or the second floor and the first floor of this map. It's a quiet time in here, Parker. Not a whole lot of guns have been fired or engagements have been had yet. I think they're feeling each other out, trying to get an idea of what is the pace going to be for this game. It's been really bloody earlier on, very brutal and arguably very quick. This first round here has been very quiet so far, but it'll have to get explosive eventually with 5 players alive from both teams.
Standing pat right now, halfway through the round. Most of Nip have been unable to get into the building. The one that we did see down below, there was a grenade that was tossed out by Pino, and he's still down there as he now roams through the basement. That small opening inside of the garage door opened up. Hot and Cold taking some considerable damage and will need to be retrieved at some point. Psycho will do his best to secure that kill, and the grenade should be good. Hot may evade it, but no, he's not able to crawl away fast enough. First kill of the series goes to the Brazilian team, and they've got control, or at least they think they've got control of West Main.
Yeah, the only isolated player from SSG got found out by NIP, and doing good job at that because the last 4 remaining players, they're sitting down pretty tight. Two guys up above and 2 guys down below. So their formation is doing pretty good right now. But NIP with 30 seconds left, they will have to go so fast and be so explosive. But Pino finds the opening.
And down goes Bosco, leaving a 3v5. There's still toxic canisters remaining, 2 from Volt. Psycho now out-dueled, but the Adrenal Surge gets him right back up. Rampy still holding down this angle. He finishes off what his teammates had started into Psycho and posted on this position, still playing very powerfully. Where are you, Nip? You got to get right in. Skies has the cross, shotgun out. Nitro Cell goes as well, and it connects, a double for his trouble. Diffuser surrendered, and both Nip members miles away. They can't recover in time to snatch that Diffuser, and SSG takes round 1.
NIP had to get explosive, but it was Skies from SSG who ended up delivering that explosion upon them. They didn't really get a lot for their money in the early round. I think they tried to gamble a little bit on perhaps SSG moving more around the map. It was only Hot and Cold that was moving at all, as the remaining 4 players from SSG were sitting nice and tight on site. And NIP, not the explosive and early game aggression as I expected. I honestly thought they were going to show us some more of that Latin style gameplay, but now that they've seen how SSG has approached their first defense, perhaps that will change.
Oh, there's a bit of poor coordination from Nip going through that main lobby, expecting the Diffuser that was being escorted in through Mudroom to make it to the bomb site. There's no real top floor control from Nip either. How often do we see teams take control of library, patrol those mirror windows, and then command the hatch, forcing the defenders to play in that stock room between bar and gaming? But Space Station rebuffed them at the edges. That library stairs control leading down to the basement, never relinquished by Space Station. Chimney with Rampy playing up in that spot, never relinquished by Space Station. And Nip just went for a very straight linear take. When you go through that mudroom doorway, there's no destructible walls around you. You are funneling through a single door, and that's it. And when there's an SAS shotgun pointed in your direction, you're going to have a bad time.
Certainly, especially when those players with those shotguns in their hands can be Skies and Bosco. That is some of those most lethal versions of their kind because they believe the most in their weapon, and when you believe, it believes back and grants you what you need. SSG, one of their, well, 2 of their prime factors is 1, they are so clutch. They have the most clutches this entire tournament. But speaking of clutch, look at NIP going for a fast side take.
Oh my goodness, damage done to Bosco. They're right in right now. The remainder sorted, and Nip finds their second kill to start off the round. Down goes Rampy. SSG deciding that they want to take these engagements very brazenly, but they've yet to really hit a target. Diffuser planted, so the round that had about 2 minutes left is now reduced to only 40 seconds. Volt's the first kill for SSG, but he'll have to retake, and directly to his left is a player from Nip. Down goes the shield, but he can't see too far. His position back in, spotted, and they know exactly where he is. There's 3 guns aimed at his position, and he is as good as done. There's only 2 remaining. SSG have that top floor control, but they're miles away from the Diffuser. 20 seconds remaining, and they're just being picked off, hunted for sport by Nip. Hot and Cold knows how dangerous and how impossible this may be. Stat pad as best as you can. Those are impactless frags, and the first round might have gone to Space Station, but Nip takes one of their own.
And there it is, the adaptation and change of pace. They felt each other out the first round. SSG then got a big surprise as NIP just went straight for those west main windows and straight into the bomb site, and there was nothing that could really stop them, as the only player on site from SSG was Bosco on the smoke, and he did not stand for very long as he was the opening pick for NIP. Foles had a nice try with the flank, but he was met by a deployable shield, and he might have to destroy it with his own impact. There is no worse feeling than putting up all those defensives on the bomb site, and then they work against you because the attackers went straight through it and just planted the bomb and didn't really give a damn.
There's nobody watching West Main, which is where Nip waltzed right in from. Nobody from Space Station playing on the stairs. Nobody playing in West Main. Nobody who was in Trophy in a position to really stop that Nip push. And the only player from Space Station who was in even close proximity was in Kitchen, Bosco. And he didn't know what was about to hit him. The wave crashed onto the shore and he was dragged out to sea. Which is strange because that Kitchen bomb site is usually so defendable, and when rushes are happening, presuming that you have somebody playing either in Dining or over by West Main, you could stop it and you know it's coming and control it pretty easily, but I think Nip assessed that Space Station, oh, they didn't exactly have full coverage. They were still doing setup work. You still had too many bodies from Space Station upstairs, and Nip read that one beautifully.
That's the thing, if you're really, really fast, it's one of those things where the defenders, they can have their setup going on even, 10, 20, 30 seconds into the round. And NIP, knowing that, having the information and making the decisive decision to say, you know what, if this doesn't work, we don't care, we believe in this execute, we see that there's an opening, and that opening was capitalized on very, very well. This nade almost capitalizing on an early kill onto Skies, but he hears it, walks backwards, and gets away with almost his entire health bar.
Ah yes, the sound of the pin being pulled, and he will peel off. Now inside of office. That's where one of the bomb sites is, by the way, and he's on drone underneath the cabinet, but Pino can't capitalize off of it. Skies doesn't know that he's being watched, and well, if he goes prone here, he just might see it. Still wandering away. Rampy now trying to get back closer to the bomb site. Nobody really holding Piano actively. And Rampy knew that there was someone watching that position, so he pulls out the pistol to run as quickly as he can. Drop an ADS, expecting there to be a grenade to go. Is that a runout that we saw from Skies? It appeared that way. Held off on for just a second as the first minute of this round has now expired.
Yeah, Remy says, don't worry, you'll be safe now. No grenades can do you no harm as the ADS gets put down in the middle of the round after the first initial nade on Skies almost took his life. Full seeing we can make do of this, but remember, there is no information available on the defensive side. You're pretty much running in blind. You have audio, and that ADS, like I rotated earlier, already paying off. But Rampy finds the opening kill for SSG. Now, that is the first time this game that they have found the opening kill, and they have found themselves in the lead with that too.
They were hoping to coordinate effectively. The grenade timed with the push that was coming in on balcony, but it was just a bit too slow after that grenade. It did not do its job. I don't know if they were aware that there's still a pocket ADS, and that's not always a certainty that Jaeger is still holding on to some of that utility when Rampy failed to die.
Yeah, very well, nicely done, I would say. Usually when you toss one grenade, you don't expect an ADS to appear out of nowhere, so that's a bit of a one-off. And Psycho trades it back 4 versus 4. It's hot and off the board. Having a slow start for himself, but I'm sure he'll wake up once you start talking more about him, Parker.
And that looks like most of the B-bomb site is not being actively defended right now. Bosco is over by Trophy Stairs. That's about it. So Space Station are expecting a push from Piano and Office to be the focus. But Solarium is a weak point for them right now. If Nip in the next 30 seconds assess, that's where they want to go from. I mean, it doesn't really matter where you're going from if you're just getting picked off one by one, but everybody from Space Station is hitting the deck. It's all on the shoulders of Bosco, who is playing on that spot, and he's going to have to hurry. Diffuser getting planted, but he's retaking against a mirror window he does not have control over. No rotates for him to watch either, and Diffuser goes down again. Another successful plant for this Nip team. Bosco working against the clock, and his position has been given away. He's very clutch, but Nip are just so damn good, and they'll take the round, and with it, they gain their first lead as they're up 2-1.
Yup, and there it is. You spoke about it briefly as it happened. All the members of SSG had practically rotated over, expecting a library side take, leaving the bathroom very, very vulnerable. Piano, relatively vulnerable. And again, NIP reading the situation very, very well, knowing it's clear, capitalizes and finds a very, very crazy opening that SSG did not expect. We saw Rampy holding the Piano window, but he got shot from behind and shot down, and that essentially ended the round for SSG as they just found 3 picks out of nowhere, and yeah.
And here's something that's really impressive about Ninjas in Pyjamas. Of the 6 matches that they played in the group stages, they could only muster 4 plants. That's it.
Yeah.
4 diffusers planted over 6 maps. Already in this matchup, they have half of that number as they've gotten 2 plants down in these 3 rounds. So a team that is known for its fragging prowess and not necessarily being the most strategic team. Usually we would tip our hat to SSG as being the more strategic and coordinated when it came to greater depth other than fragging power. In this case, Nip is doing an exceptional job making up for some of the weaknesses and criticisms that were leveled at them during those group stages.
That they certainly are, and just for comparison's sake, as Parker mentioned, NIP with the 4 plants during group stage, SSG had 9, so over double. And speaking of double, let's talk about some clutches here. SSG coming out on top to nobody's surprise, #1 clutch team with 11 clutches across the board between them. NIP tied for second with 5. So once again, SSG doubling up on the points in those areas, but so far it's NIP with double the round score in this present game. We do speak about Chalet being a bit more attacker favored, and there are multiple reasons for that. Essentially speaking, you just don't have that much ground to work with as a defender. You gotta pick where you want to be strong, and what we have right now is just like the previous time we saw the bar bomb site, is that you have that top blue stairs where Skies is sitting with the smoke, and you have Rampy playing in on chimney, and that's the area that SSG says that's what we're gonna defend, that's what we care about the most, and that's what we're gonna keep our attention towards. NIP this time with a different approach. Remember, last time it was up through the basement. This time around, they're coming from that office master bedroom side, so they want to challenge this hold from SSG. Now, there's no Amai being played, it's just the Jaeger and the Aruni, meaning that the grenades will be coming through with big pain.
I do want to remind somebody about Chalet. It has the most attacker-friendly results through the group stage of the 5 times that Chalet was played up to this point. This will be number 6. The defenders only won 35% of the rounds. The 65% went in favor of the attackers. So defenders in a terrible spot statistically. If you can take 1/3 of the rounds on defense, you're right about where the average is. Another round for Space Station here on defense would be crucial, as that 5-1 on Chalet has been seen a number of times. That said, we're just past the halfway mark now of round number 4, and Space Station are looking to hang on. Nip assembling over by the balcony and looking to take some more map control away towards the bomb site. They're positioned over by Piano, over by Office, and need to push towards that bar gaming bomb site. Adrenal Surge comes out as we hit the final minute mark now, and this is where the action begins, but Space Station finds their targets. A beautiful start for them on this round. All 3 players from NIP losing their 50-50s. A 5v2 with plenty of time for NIP to figure this one out, but they are losing out on the numbers advantage. Huge.
Well, it looked like a great setup from NIP, got shut down very briefly, but Julio has something to say about that. The Mirindo onside of stock will shut him down briefly, as he'll have to crouch behind this bar desk. Flashbangs and hams coming out, that's gonna benefit him with those changes. Now he knows the whereabouts of this mirror player. He's the last man standing, as Kamikaze has found himself injured. He's now in a 1 versus 3, but there's no diffuser anywhere nearby. Could he make it outside, go for that revive, maybe find a kill of his own? He knows Skies is stuck inside of this room, but surely Skies is not alone. He has 3 friends, he has teammates, he has the cross. It becomes the 1v1, and Skies finds it. SSG takes the round.
Well, for a moment there, it was looking like it might be flawless with the way that Space Station rebuffed the advances of Ninjas in Pyjamas. Keeping it this close, being on defense on Chalet once again is a good sign for Space Station. And the way that they're playing this aggressive style, taking those engagements on that previous round, was a winning formula. They're not going to be able to go back to this bomb site. Bar Gaming is now locked for the remainder of Space Station's defenses, as they have won it successfully twice. Now, could we see something swapped up here by going to the bottom floor bomb site? Well, Nick, while we were talking, it actually looks like the answer to that is going to be yes. Space Station will do what they do on many maps, play every single bomb site that exists in the game. So what is typically known as an incredibly hard bomb site to defend is going to be picked by Space Station. But wait, of the 6 times that this bomb site has been played at this event, it's 50-50 as to whether the attackers will win.
That's not bad. I mean, if you're 50-50 on the odds right now and you're SSG seeing those odds, I think you're saying that you're happy with that. The one thing that could be very awkward, though, I will say, is that Psycho is now on the Flores. And this kind of is like Oregon basement defense, where you're going to be solidifying certain positions and you're going to be sitting pretty tight on side. The Flores drones have incredibly high value and can help you get rid of those crucial positions from the defenders. So NIP doing a pretty good job at assessing the possibilities and maybe figuring out what are our weaknesses and what do we want to be able to do. And again, Bosco on the Wamai is going to kind of complement into that, where they want to worry about the grenades, but in reality, the thing that's going to be destroying your stuff is going to be the drones.
Well, Psycho's been the standout performer in the head-to-head with SSG. Both he and Rampy are on top of this team statistically. Psycho actually is the 4th highest rating of every player through the group stages, and obviously it speaks to the dominance that NIP had so long in the groups. Yeah, they lost the last match to BDS 4-7, but you know what? At that point, NIP had nothing to play for. A loss to BDS didn't change the results of the group. You had an opportunity to play a map you didn't really care about, maybe save some strats and prep for the next day. I think NIP handled that one appropriately, though they could have gone a perfect 6-0. So, in regards to Rampy, by the way, 14th highest rating. So a bit of a difference right now. Hot and Cold is a player that SSG also needs more out of. He has had an average performance here through the groups, and in this round, it's a bad performance. He gets punished by a grenade relatively early on, leaving 2 minutes for Space Station to find themselves down a man.
It's always this window in particular, and it's always a grenade flying through it. And like the previous round, there was Skies. This time it's Hot and Cold, and right now, this time around, it's Pino.
Gotcha!
Pokemon was chosen, it was captured, and it was defeated. That is Pino off the board, and now it looks a bit better for SSG. 4 versus 4 now, and they've kind of evened back the score. But speaking of NIP, they looked like they were in a bit of a slumber throughout the last couple of months, especially in their domestic tournaments. They weren't really looking like a team that were champion-like, but they have really shown up at Sweden so far.
There's a line of sight from the very top floor up an office that lets you look down into the bottom floor, and I don't know if that's what Nip is going to try to go for. It also involves opening up hatches. Kamikaze was over inside a big garage looking at the double panel where Musi is right now to try and open that up, but instead it's the wine cellar wall that they're going to go for first and foremost, and not the back one leading to the corridor in the garage.
It's looking pretty good, but now we gotta take a look at what comes out from SSG. The Kite Claws here and the Jammer. They're putting a stop to NIP's push, and they need to find a way to destroy them, because otherwise this round is not gonna look good for them. What do they have available? No nades from Musi, about to wall bang his way through this bottom closet. Kite Claw on the outer wall and the Jammer on the inner. So essentially what it comes down to is... Oh, C4 in hands, guys, looking to get cheeky. He knows he has to find it.
Oh!
Pong does not go through, but SSG knows they cannot breach these walls. They have to force their way through.
Did a fair bit of damage to Kamikaze, by the way. There's a kill for Nip. A second follow-up. No. Fultz looks at the ground instead of upwards. So now Kamikaze will need to tear through with Julio not too far off inside of blue. A split push. But right now, SSG is eluding them. Bosco wins his engagement. It's all on Julio in the midst of the site with 1 second left. And the game of Keep Away will give 3 rounds to Space Station. Impossible for them to lose the first half. This is a massive win on the most attacker-sided map.
Yeah, so let's wind back the clock a bit. Who was the opening death? It was Hot and Cold. How did he die? Well, a grenade. What could NIP really use in those last 50-ish seconds? Well, a grenade. They were stopped by a Kite Claw, they were stopped by a Jammer, and there was no way for them to really find them. And now... they've said, we pick up the Maverick. We do not want to be put in this position again. We do not want to be unable to open up the walls. We do not want our win condition to be... Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll take it all back. They 6-picked the Nook instead. So they're gonna go back to this sneaky peeky like, go for kills. But to be honest, we're no longer in the basement, so I don't really blame them a whole lot. Nook also brings the grenades, which I think ultimately is what they wanted. You get 2 on the sledge, 2 on the Nook, 2 on the finger with the gun, 6. Quick maps, that is 7 explosivos combined with the 6 flashbangerinos from Kamikaze and Julio on the Hibana and the Nomad. Not bad.
I always love the way you say Nook. I know it has nothing to do with analysis, but I mean...
The way to do it. Nook. It's an Nook. How do you say it?
Nook.
That's not that different. It's pretty good actually. Nook.
I'm making Milos blush right now, I bet.
Yeah, I mean... Milos loves the languages, the pronunciations, and he has his ways about them, and we don't always see eye to eye on those, but I know how to go about this one in particular.
He's a true languageologist, so
yes,
there's nobody.
That's the word.
Nobody who pronounces like he does. Anywho, very final defense for Space Station. They picked Chalet. Presumption is they're most comfortable on this map, likely more comfortable than Ninjas in Pyjamas. Once again, only 35% win rate for the defenders on this map, and yet Space Station cannot be worse than 50%. That is
pretty good.
Pretty good to say the least. You can pay us as much money as you want to say nice things on a broadcast, but sometimes all you gotta say is, that's pretty good. That's it.
I will say one thing though to protect those stats is that there is a bit of a bias. Oh wait, once a moment. Here's Psycho sneaking up in the dining hallway. Full seems to have figured it out, and just like the previous time we saw a Nook creeping up, out and about, it gets shut down. Julio was a little bit too late with the refrag. That could have caught Fools off guard, but it doesn't seem to happen. What happens instead is Skies got picked off by Pino. Not entirely sure whether that happened, but it did. So 4 versus 4. And the factual bias regarding the defender and attacker round is that in the Vitality Team 1 game, it was like all attacking rounds being won, so the statistics are a little bit skewed from that match, but besides that, you are indeed correct, it is attacker favored.
What did they say? There's 3 things in the world: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So always got to sort through it. That said, the one thing that I have been most impressed with by Ninjas in Pyjamas, and we won't get to see any more of it on their side of things as it's their last attack, is how well coordinated their adrenal surges from the Finca has been. Every single time they feel they're in an engagement, it's immediate. They hit it seconds before. They've used it to get some of their players back up off the ground, once again, immediately. Those are quick, clear comms that are clearly working out quite well.
It is, and I mean, Latsam aggression. Latsam has been using this finger in first, pretty much. We've spoken about that before, but yeah, Musi using to great perfection, communicating with his teammates when are things about to happen, and he wants to assist and ensure that his teammates are as strong as possible. And speaking of strong, a red ping comes out, but he runs away. Rambi looking in the wrong direction, gets shot in the back by Musi, and that is a huge kill for them as the time is ticking down.
Spacestation now trail with 30 seconds left in the round, and they were like sitting ducks here before. Nip waltzed in very quickly, and then they got the diffuser down, but it's a very different attack from them. They still have a lot of control, and with 20 seconds remaining and a numbers advantage, they're not in a terrible shape, but they have to get into the bomb site. Hot and Cold peeks around. Oh, you saw him! You know you need to re-engage. There you go. Julio cut off a wire, posted back up over near Trophy. Bosco with one. The smoke still lingers, and all of a sudden, Nip, who have Kamikaze inside of the bomb site, need Pino for Overwatch, doing damage to Hot and Cold, but Space Station sweeps right through them, and they clean up the kitchen attack. A 4-2 scoreline on defense for Space Station is what we see as the teams switch sides.
SSG can be very, very happy with that. NIP seemed like they were nowhere, yet everywhere at the same time. Kamikaze somehow made his way into sight with Diffuser, but no one else really made it anywhere near him. There couldn't have been any cover, and there wasn't any refragability, and there wasn't ultimately any way for that round to go into their favor. It looked a bit awkward, a Hot and Cold inside of Trophy, seeing the Nomad on the rappel, and we saw, I believe it was Bosco, on the floor, like through a smoke grenade, fighting the entry on from Fireplace door. So, a bit messy and a bit sloppy for final round, but now the question comes, what will SSG do and how will they do it without the Ying factor? No matter how badly they want to show it, they cannot, as it was banned out by NIP specifically because of how good they are at utilizing said operator.
Both timeouts still remaining for these teams, by the way. And let's look at the first half statistics. Obviously, the scoreline at the top shows that Space Station emerged with 4 rounds to the 2 for Ninjas in Pyjamas. SSG and NIP split first bloods evenly, 3 apiece. In terms of objective play, I fear that I might have cursed NIP, because after they got that second diffuser planted in round 3, they failed at the objective for the remainder of the rounds. And that's because they failed at winning a round from that point onward. Space Station have now won 3 rounds in a row. SSG on defense played every single bomb site. They went to the Bar Gaming bomb site on the main floor twice, successfully both times. In terms of the kitchen bomb site, they went to it twice, they won once, they lost once. They went to garage once, they won it. They went to bedroom once, upstairs, they lost it once. We'll see what NIP can now put together as we are underway with the very first attack from Space Station, again on an attacker-favored map. This should greatly benefit Space Station, but it could be that we are looking at a relatively even Chalet based on the operator bans and the way these teams play it. That's something that we won't know for a couple rounds.
Yeah, one thing these two teams have in common, besides being really good at the game, is of course that they like the bar bomb site, and it's been in succession thus far. Similar situation going up above. We're gonna see Psycho playing Chimney, making sure that SSG cannot just entry through library or entry through office, and they're gonna be challenging the early round here from SSG, but an early round challenge it is indeed, and successfully. Psycho opening kill onto Skies, and that is gonna put SSG in a hard place, as the only Heartbreacher from them is off the board. SSG will need to find a way through the site without altering the site. So we're gonna have to come down to the gunplay, and we know how strong Latsam is at that. But not only that, they also have one more gun on the board as they have the man advantage.
Sky Still Alive would say, I have altered the bomb site. Pray I don't alter it further. But now, instead, Skies is dead. And also, the lowest rated performer for Spacestation heading into this matchup, and yet he is top frag right now at 6-4. Gumine stepped on by Hot and Cold. He'll pull it out of his foot, as you see that there's those 2 T5s that will be roaming in both Psycho and Julio.
I think NIP is realizing what they did. They got Hibana off the board, and look with that kill. They all fall back from the top floor because guess what? They can't open up the hatches. They can't open up any walls. And sure, they can do a bit of vertical play with that hammer, but other than that, NIP recognizing the situation that they're in, and they're playing accordingly to that. All they gotta make sure to do now is not get a 1 versus 1 50-50 gunfight, which almost just happened for Fultz.
Fultz looking at that back bar, that storage portion. Kamikaze taken down by a grenade from Rampy. Fultz a flash out, and he's as good as gone. Or no, rather, a smoke to go off. But Pino preys upon Bosco. Still over by Kitchen. Rampy's been dropped as well, and Nip are swarming the attackers. Hunt Cold inside a main lobby, but he doesn't have anything lined up. Looking at the double doorway, we know that there's a player from Nip playing over by Kitchen, but is that something that Space Station has any idea of? Diffuser dropped, Hot and Cold now, all on his own as Rampy's been dropped and secured, and the very first offensive round for Nip goes in their favor.
Nicely done, and it all kind of played off that opening kill onto Skies, and yeah, he's been the lowest performer so far, top performer in this match, but Skies, I mean, it doesn't matter how many kills you bring to the table, what matters is that you get your job done on the operator that you're playing, and unfortunately, while he was trying to do his job, trying to breach that wall into Chimney to deny the position from NIP, he got shot down with nice calculated aggression, and that unfortunately cost SSG more than they could chew.
Kitchen Dining defense lined up for Nip. You see the replays, by the way. That death onto Skies really knocked the wind out of the sails of the attackers. And on a bomb site like this, Bar Gaming, the things that you're going to want to open up, hatches from above, if they haven't already been opened up, potentially the wall leading into Bar, you can't do that if there's no Hibon on the board. And interestingly enough, when Skies got picked off, he had put a 6 set of X-Kairos on the inside wall upstairs in Library. Now, the assumption is that they were going to play soft destruction from either Chimney or inside of Library to look down, which would effectively clear out that gaming bomb site, pushing the defenders back either towards the Library stairs or into that back bar area that connects the 2 bomb sites.
Yep, it was a nice try and a good effort, just didn't really go anywhere, but that was mostly in thanks to NIP understanding that, well, if Hibana is using her gadget, she doesn't have a gun in her hand, so I can swing for free. And a pretty free quick kill it was at that. We have now gone to Kitchen on our second defense from NIP. And they're extending up above, pretty typical stuff, very nicely done with the shields, and they have chosen that their stronghold is going to be inside of Master Bedroom. SSG now. They are going to challenge in part. It looks like they will be mainly going for a Solarium side take, which means that they will have some frustrations of their own, as NIP is also creeping around in this exact same area. Kite Claw is being used on that one hard wall, and that's going to further help NIP with their position, as it's quite a difficult one for SSG rather to clear.
I'm really interested to see how there's any staying power in play from the Kona stations of Pino playing off of that Thunderbird. That'll be fun to watch. You already heard one of them go off on Psycho. Rampy in particular knows a thing or two about that operator and how clutch potentials can be aided by a last second and very, very coincidental injection of HP. So that'll be something to watch. Teams like to bring Thunderbird on this map, for the record, especially those that are going to be playing in areas where you are softened up by grenades, explosives, etc.
Yeah, the chip damage being very real on this map indeed. Also, when you're crossing the windows, you might take a few shots into your body, and those corner stations, they kind of nullify that, as you can heal yourself back up and feel a lot nicer than you did before. SSG still on this Solarium Repel, yet to deal with this claw. This nade might have done the trick, but no, it hasn't, and they cannot breach this wall. NIP will see the situation at hand, and they will fight for a moment, but they could also fall back if they want. No, they want to fight instead. Julio swings and finds 2, and I don't know how SSG allowed that to happen. Nobody was on the bathroom window covering that swing, and they suffer the consequences.
Julio doesn't even lose 50 HP in that altercation, and he's in a position where that Kona station can get him almost back up to full. It also means the diffuser is down in Solarium. So unless you flush Julio out, you're going to be in really rough shape. NiP has responded accordingly by surrounding themselves around bedroom upstairs. Pino down below, and it's a run-in, but as Julio's been dropped, hot and cold finished off from a nitro cell. SSG are running headfirst into the brick wall that is Ninjas in Pyjamas right now, and that wall has a Brazilian flag painted all over it. An impactless kill from Fultz, but a very impactful one from Kamikaze means we've got a tie game at 4 rounds apiece.
That was brutal, watching Foles, Guman in his leg and 4 Brazilians swarming around him, shooting through the wall, peeking out in the door, and yeah, and that all happened off the play from Julio, who just said, "Oh, they're rappelling, oh, do something cool here," finds 2 kills, shuts down the push, and I don't know, SSG going for an incredibly linear push, and with no one on that bathroom window or on the library roof even covering the bathroom window, it just was made way too easy, and the punishment was far, far too real. If you want to go for these direct approaches, you really got to make sure that the weaknesses in the openings are not being capitalized on by the opposing team, and that was not done this round from SSG.
A timeout from Lycan, the coach of Spacestation.
Smart man.
I think that's the right time to do it. At this point, Chalet has bucked that trend. You talked about how the statistics were skewed just a tiny bit because of that one Vitality matchup, Nick. Well, whether it's skewed or not, the defenders have had a triumphant start here on Chalet. Of the 8 rounds that have been played, it's 6-2 in favor of the team on defense. Now, if SSG want to either outright win this or go to overtime, they need to start winning. An outright win for Spacestation means that they need to win 3 rounds over the next 4, or they need to pick up 2 rounds to ensure that they mirror what happened on that very first half and go to overtime. So Lycan clearly doesn't see something he likes. Maybe it's poor coordination, but both when Skies died and then that double play by Julio inside of Solarium were the direct results of a lack of information from Spacestation. Maybe there's some issues going on, confidence, cockiness, issues with comms. Lycan's going to settle them down, inject a little bit of strategy into their gameplay, and if you're a fan of Spacestation, hope that they find their footing. But right now, NiP have looked mighty good on defense.
No, I think those are all very valid points, and I think if you're SSG, I think if you're Lycan calling that timeout, since SSG hasn't actually shown this map in the group stage, it could just be some first game nerves on a bigger stage in a while, so it might just be freshening up on what exactly we need to keep track of, because as we saw, they clearly lost track of the objective the previous round, as there was multiple openings from NIP which cost them what they wanted to achieve, which was the win. So just saying, guys, remember, our priority is this and that, which could be if we go for a direct attack, make sure that the bases are covered, make sure you can't get flanked, and make sure that there's no openings where you get vulnerable into those gunfights. Because when you give NIP the gunfights, when you let NIP dictate the rounds, that is when SSG looks a bit flawed. Both of these teams, they lack controlling the momentum, and that's exactly why this Ying Bang probably came out, because if SSG has the Ying, they are now in control. And with that being gone, NIP, they're in the driver's seat.
Lion and Ying have been staples of SSG's attacks on at least half of the maps that we've seen them play on. So it stands to reason that this target ban from NiP is throwing SSG off a tiny bit. And that's all credit to Ninjas in Pyjamas doing their homework and realizing that a target ban could be so effective. I still don't think the ban is the sole reason for the stumbles from Spacestation. The issues are addressed now, hopefully by Lycan, if, once again, you're an SSG fan. If you're a fan of NiP, you hope that the timeout didn't really do all that much and things continue to go according to plan.
Yup, NIP sitting tight. They have now gone up to the master bedroom, and they've done so with the kite and the mirror. So they have made themselves a nice area here where Psycho will be the person to do it all. He'll be managing the kite claws, he's got a C4 as well, and he's got the mirror window to really work his way into this piano hallway. SSG will need to figure out a way to pull this apart. I would have gone below, done some verticality, of course. The bug isn't in play, but the grenades are. And this is where the kite gets so frustrating when Thatcher is banned. And it's often why when you see somebody ban the Thatcher, or even if you ban the Thatcher yourself, it's not atypical to not also ban out the kite, simply because it's so hard to deal with.
Instead, Spacestation wanted to take care of the Echo and was Valkyrie ban from NiP. IQ has seen some pick rates increases, rather, when we saw a Valkyrie in play. I don't know if Julio was... Oh, no, he wasn't. I didn't know if Julio was behind the wall or not. The silhouette not doing us any favors here, but a grenade will go in, and it's a bit too early. It doesn't go the way that Julio is playing. What a shot on the hot and cold. A not so strong performance from a player that is absolutely indomitable in North America, but in this matchup against Brazilians, he's not faring so well, and neither is Rampy, as Julio's vault out works wonderfully.
Not sure about this from SSG. Is still sloppy. The timer didn't quite hit the mark, but Kamikaze doesn't miss. That is 3 players off the board from SSG, and the only thing that NIP suffered was Julio's HP, as he is close to death but still standing. Bosco from SSG is leading the charge up above while Fools goes down below. A gunfight occurs, but it's a whip from both. Fools eventually finds the kill, but he's so low on health. It is now matched by Julio. Now Bosco will have to find a kill of his own. There is 17 seconds left. Remember, the bomb site is up above. Fools still join him. They jump into the windows, but the injury occurs, and as they go into piano, NIP says, no more in this house. We take control of master bedroom, and we defend it till the end.
NIP lost the lead in this match back in round number 3, but they have grabbed it yet again. After Space Station closed out that first half with 3 rounds in a row, it's NIP's turn to start streaking. That's 3 big rounds from them, and they are clobbering Space Station in terms of statistics. 2 multi-kills for NIP in those 3 rounds. 3 opening bloods for NIP in those rounds. 0 objectives committed by Space Station. Very minimal hard destruction committed by Space Station. There is almost no statistic that NIP hasn't beaten Space Station on during those 3 rounds. And the timeout from Lycan that was called in the previous round, obviously not working out in favor. Now, not that I want to try to read into the mind of players because I've never competed at this level, but good news. You have, so give me your thoughts on this. That Fultz play when he dropped down into lobby and engaged inside of kitchen and inside of dining, it looked like desperation, it looked like frustration, and like just simple nerves. Is that something that you could see at the same time?
Certainly. I mean, one of the things that when you talk about SSG is how clutch they are. But in this match, we've yet to see many clutch moments from them. It's either been arguably one-sided or decently sized victories when they were on the defense, and we haven't seen anything clutch in the attacks. I don't know if nerves is at play, but I do agree that a bit of desperation occurred in the previous round as they didn't exactly know what to do, and typically SSG, they lead the pace, they set the momentum. Usually they will say, we want you to problem solve our defense, but NIP doing a surprisingly good job mirroring that as they pick up the kite, they pick up the mirror, and they are setting up these problems for SSG that they're unable to solve, and what comes out of that is the chaos, and the chaos is where NIP and Latam especially, that they thrive. So SSG being a little bit outmaneuvered so far, I'm not sure if it's, you know, back to basics we go or something, but if I was SSG, one thing I would highly recommend just to make life a little bit easier is actually to try and enable hot and cold on the buck. This enables another layer for your team where you can go down below. If there's a mirror window, clear it. A kite claw, destroy it, or a jammer, you can get rid of it. And then with that, you can start breaching the walls and progress naturally on the map instead of constantly getting stuck in these areas that SSG perhaps just aren't used to.
Well, we've got a technical pause right now on your screen. As you can see in the bottom, that's the round breakdown and how things have worked out. There has been some objective play, like we said. The diffuser's been planted twice. It happened in the earlier portion of this map back in rounds 2 and 3. And the diffuser is ultimately what ended up being successful for NIP in round 3. Outside of that, it has been violence. Nothing but lots of violence.
Yep, well, violence is the name of the game. In the end, this game is about taking each other out, or sometimes, I mean, you can also play around with your opponents a bit. If they're injured on the ground, teabag them, you know, show them the good old back. That's something that North America loves and that we see a lot from them, but I will say, not a lot of bad manners this tournament. I feel the players have been acting nice to one another, some good shots, nice shots, thank yous coming out in chats. Nothing too vile this time around.
NIP are going to go to Bar Gaming. This is where they began their side, their half of terror thus far. Bomb sites defended very effectively, and once again, it was that early pick onto Skies. the hard breach that completely derailed Space Station's attack. Now, SSG hasn't changed too much up. They have lots of explosive potential, grenades in the hands of 3 operators, a Finka being brought out, as Finka has been very much a staple on this map between the two teams. But if I'm Space Station, as long as Skies does not die early, you are in significantly better position to close out the round than you were at the start of this half. SSG have lost the plot, NiP have taken over. This is SSG's map. And while we've had a string of 2-0s today, losing this very first map, not great for Space Station historically, could end up being a 2-0 for NiP. Let's not get ahead of ourselves because the next map obviously is Coastline. That's played by NiP as well, but we don't have any data. We don't have any data on either of these maps, so we're just kind of flying blind based upon the last time they played them, which were not in the groups at all.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk too much about next map, but I do think that Coastline is where you question like, oh, is SST ready for NIP in their full force on that map? But we're not getting into that just yet. We still have some rounds to go. We spoke about, or I spoke about rather, the Bok being picked up from SSG and Houghton, but they've gone to the Maverick instead, and it actually serves a very similar purpose. But instead of going below, like I suggested with the vertical play, you keep the grenades that the Statue previously have, and you can go for these direct takes, so that SSG has so far been doing. This wall into bar, into stock is a very common angle to open up with the Maverick. Usually pro players are used to it, so no kills gets found. That's very common. Of course, NIP sitting up above, very common stuff. Rambi, drops down as well, says, you know what, I'm not quite liking the situation at hand.
There were a lot of players from both teams within steps of an altercation. Both on the opening of that wall leading into the back bar, down by the stairs leading into basement that we saw from the Maverick, but also from Rampy's position. So, with that said, it's half the round in the books. Still discovery work happening from Space Station. Not terrible pacing, I would say, but they're certainly going to need to find the gas at some point.
You know, this reminds me of the first round from NIP, the exact same situation. They went into basement first, didn't find anything, then they go back outside the basement and they've yet to find anybody. The one thing that was different though is eventually NIP found the singled out player from Hot and Cold, which in this case would be Moosey, and Rampy knows his whereabouts, so we might just see an exact replication of the first round, but in reverse.
Rampy needs to look in the right direction, and there he goes, an easy frag onto Moosey and an Adrenal Surge to boot, giving Space Station their very first opening duel since round number 6. They've got intel as well on Pino, and another member of the defense will fall, so whatever Space Station talked about seems to be paying dividends. Fultz walks right in the middle of the site, and that was that intel that we said on the Jaeger. Kamikaze will deny a flawless, but 4 more kills separate him and his team from match point, and that separation will remain. Back, tied apiece at 5 as Space Station grabs round number 10.
I'm gonna need someone, once this entire series is finished, to compare the first round of NIP on attack with that 10th round of SSG on attack and play them side by side. I will bet you that they look 85% identical in positions and outcome. And, well, what do you know? It's same ideas from both teams, but nobody's really doing it better. I will note that NIP has the opening kill advantage so far, but that was SSG's first opening kill since the side swap, and it was also the first round that they won. So, looking a bit better from them, but we're not gonna go back to bar. The same thing cannot be repeated, and even if it did, obviously you cannot expect the same result, because then attacking would be oh so easy. It's back to kitchen. But what we saw the previous time from NIP was the extension up above, and they've been using the mute and the kite to great perfection, but this time around it will just be the mute, and maybe, just maybe, that will make life a bit easier for SSG, as that has been their biggest obstacle so far on their attacking side.
A second crack at kitchen now for NiP as they're going to be cycling through these bomb sites. I assume that if a fateful 12th round is needed, this is the penultimate round, which, by the way, we will need a 12th round. So I am not capable, for the record, of doing math. So match point, no matter what happens, penultimate round, potentially, we don't know. We'll see who ends up taking match point. Given the rotation that we've seen, bedroom is most likely upstairs. I would be shocked if NiP decided to go towards the bottom floor. North America as a region tends to like that bomb site the most. Space Station went there, it was successful, but I don't know if NiP have a strategy for it.
feel like NIP likes sticking to their guts, but also the basement bomb site doesn't give you the most amount of movement to work with, and the way that NIP's been playing so far involves a lot of moving around, which we're seeing right now. They start off with this super aggressive library extension, they kill a drone, or 2 or 3 drones in fact, then they fall back, and now you see SSG having to re-drone the entire thing once again. They're looking for the whereabouts, the jammers of course assisted them beautifully, and now we're in a situation where SSG, well, you've lost 3 drones, 4 drones, and you're lost a minute, and you're slowly making your way towards this office wall, but thankfully this time around, you brought the Maverick. So, SSG has the tools, and they still do have the time. It's not looking too bad on pace here. I would say they're looking just fine. So they will now need to start making work of the office wall so they can progress to the next step, which of course would be the vertical play, and then ideally into the execute.
First Nitro Cell goes off, and it doesn't do a lick of damage to Space Station. Halfway through round number 11. Both teams just hanging on right now. Sky's still alive for that previous round, and now doing things mighty fine. They'll open up some of the walls leading towards the bomb site, but they're above, so that map control is quite integral. A grenade also goes out, and Hot and Cold has one to drop on them. And just like that, it'll do a tiny bit of damage to Pino, but really not all that much. That could have been an anvil landing on his head, but no, it's just a scratch, and it's immediately healed back up by the Kona station.
Yeah, we gotta keep an eye on SSG and how much map control they want. A bit of damage dealt to Force here, but NIP, or SSG rather, doesn't need more ground. They don't want it. They got essentially what they came for, but they want to contest the master bedroom.
There's 3 bodies from Nip upstairs right now as SSG seem inches away from striking on this execute. Bomb site down below, a focus at some point. Nitro Cell in hand by Pino, waiting over on West Main. First kill goes to Nip. They're going to look to secure match point. Answered immediately back by Rampy. He peels off. Sky's now leading the charge. Diffuser in hand. That's a guaranteed flash, but he misses out and he doesn't know there's one to his right. It's a waiting game now for Nip, still holding on to that advantage. 2 remain for Space Station against the 3 from Ninjas in Pyjamas, and SSG are at the mercy of the clock. The diffuser needing to be retrieved from above. Bosco outside, while Hot and Cold is the one tasked to get it. And it's a rotate from Bosco, potentially towards the main lobby. Hot and Cold doesn't know if anybody's there. They are blind on intel, and the clock is not favorable to them still whatsoever. Musi will retake. He sees Hot and Cold, shutting down a potential chance, and it's a 2-piece for Musi. Nip on match point.
Oh boy, SSG. So, there's 2 ways that could have gone. The first one is what happened. You breach the office wall and you say, we want more. We want master bedroom, we want bathroom, we want solarium. We want to clear out the entire top floor and feel super safe and comfortable. They tried that, it didn't work. The other outcome you can do is that you open up the office wall, you take office control, and then you sit tight. You work right below into fireplace, you breach the wall into dining, and then you work on that execute. That never happened. NIP, they challenged, they stuck around, and the one thing to really note is that Julio was stuck inside a bathroom, hiding in a corner, fully blinded. And what happened with their communication was that Pino threw a C4 from below up onto that bathroom door, and when Julio got the gunfight, sure, Julio found the first kill, then got refragged from SSG, but then the beautiful part came where Pino exploded his C4 and found another kill, essentially putting Julio's terrible position into a 2 kills or a 2-for-1 advantage, and NIP found a great benefit from that terrible position of Julio. Very well done, and it's something that really points out the communication and calmness of that.
It's the one most glaring thing about Space Station through all of these rounds is an inability to find their targets. When they get in the building, they are constantly searching for answers as to where Nip is. Now, sometimes you can pinpoint, okay, there's a Mozzie on the board, okay, there's a Vigil on the board, okay, there's a Mute on the board. That's why teams are having these struggles. But for the most part, Nip is only running a Mute, and those 4 jammers are not always in positions to deny intel so much as to deny gadgets from working, especially given that Thatcher ban. And you talked about how effective operators like Kaid and Mute can be because of that. So for Space Station, this is an issue that they're having on their part. Their team coordination, not as tight as it usually is, and they've fallen behind the 8 ball on this one. They still have a round to pull this off. Overtime awaits us if SSG...
Oh no.
Look at this. Pino surrendering himself, potentially a sacrificial lamb for Nip, as, you know, blood for the blood god, all that jazz. But the opening pick breaks in Space Station's favor. So far through this half, Nick, the team that has got that first blood has won every single round. For Space Station, if that trend line breaks, that's the map. They want to hope that it continues.
Yeah, I said, oh no, because for once again, I was like, oh no, SSG's Heartbreacher will just walk into an opponent, but it actually ends up being hot and cold, finding Pino, and the Jaeger getting off the board. Now, NIP can make do without him. He's already put down his utility, and they've got the value that they wanted, but Musi joins him in the grave as Fold finds a nice shot onto the bathroom window, and that now leaves NIP on the back end of things. Now, they do not have much to stand on here. There is no win objective right now for them. They will need to find the bomb or the gunfights.
And Psycho creeps on up. There's no flank watch. Hot and Cold dispatched. He's still trying to find some positivity in this match, and I mean that in terms of kills, as he has been firmly in the negatives. That's not what you want from him out of the role that he's been playing. And he's on that secondary hard breach on the Maverick. Good thing for you, you've still got the Hibana for added insurance, and a flash will drop deep into the middle of the A bomb site. Just a little bit over a minute to go now. Space Station still with the upper hand, but things can change very quickly.
Quickly they can change indeed. We already saw one swing come out from NIP successfully, getting down that man advantage from 2 to just 1. And a 4 versus 3 is not unwinnable by any means or measure. And with just a minute left and very limited vertical play from SSG, that leaves NIP with so many different positions that they can utilize. Skies is alive this time around, so the C4, the hatch gets open, but the C4 goes through it. Actually, you would think you should open up the hatch, but NIP says no, you should not.
And that's now 2 down from both sides. SSG no longer having that advantage. So they'll have to creep towards the bomb site knowing that there are even numbers from Nip and present. They still haven't been able to figure out the off-site play of Kamikaze holding this position. So the sidearm of Skies will walk its way down the main lobby and now look into the bomb site. They're not finding any targets. Great patience right now from Ninjas in Pyjamas. Still waiting as Skies wanders up. Bosco drops the dominoes for Space Station wobbly, and there they start to go as it's Skies in a 1v3. Nowhere near enough damage, nowhere near enough time, and he gets shut down by Psycho at the last second. Map number 1 goes in favor of Ninjas in Pyjamas. Space Station picked it, but Nip were the better team, and they're up 1-0 in the series.
Oh, that's gonna be a hard one if you're an SSG fan, player, or coach. Oh, I will say, they did everything right in the final round. They had the man advantage. They opened up the hatches. But then NIP, they found a way back into the round and eventually found a way to close out that map. And they want to take us to the next one, which of course is Coastline.
Coastline is an absolute bonkers map for us to potentially end this series on. Every single team today so far, Nick, has won 2-0. If you're Ninjas in Pyjamas, that means that you move on to the semifinals tomorrow, and the final North American team goes home. This is going to be an absolute nightmare for both of these teams. It's going to be especially enjoyable for us, but that Chalet did not quite play out as we expected it. I suspect Coastline is going to follow that same trend line.
I absolutely think so, and I will say something towards NIP's playstyle is that they played a lot more together and a lot more, I will say, respectful towards SSG, not just running around doing crazy things all the time. They understood that they can also play a slow game. They can also dictate the game without having to run into their face, and SSG didn't really have a way around that.
SSG were the team that we build as being a bit more strategic. They might win in terms of overall coordination, but lose out in gunfights. It was Nip today who ultimately won out in both. But let's get to know Space Station a little bit more. We've got a video ready for you of them between these two maps.
It's Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
I don't know. Yeah, me?
Alex or Bosco?
Yeah.
Alex or Bosco?
There's a lot.
We have a lot of leaders.
Alex is our in-game leader.
And then Bosco's like our in-game leader on defense. Me?
I'm pointing at Foltz.
Oh.
It just looked like it's at you.
I wouldn't even say Foltz is lazy. I think he sleeps a lot.
Yeah, he sleeps a lot. That's the only reason.
I see Foltz sleep 11, 12 hours.
I'm just kind of a slow-moving person. If that makes sense.
Takes your time.
Yeah, I'm not in a rush.
It's
Probably me or Matt.
I would say Rampy.
out of us 4, Rampy.
We have like this this cutout. It's like a big cardboard cutout of an astronaut, and this goon likes to just put it in people's bathrooms or outside their doors. We just open the door to like a big astronaut cutout.
Looks like a person in the dark. So I did it to our analyst when he was sleeping one time. He left his lights on in the room because we watched a scary movie. And I just walked in his room and put it at the foot of his bed and just walked out. And, like woke up at like 4 in the morning screaming. Myself.
Rampy.
Yeah, I'd say Rampy.
Probably Rampy. I mean, I don't know. I've been here long enough.
Rampy just has the strongest emotion on the team, I would say.
Myself, for sure.
So.
That's how it's always been for me. I'm very competitive, very outspoken, loud.
Yeah.
Bosco.
Yeah, Bosco's has been to school the longest, so I'm gonna go with him. That's really about it. That's the only reason.
For our team, we just have like the theory that Bosco's just good at everything he does, so we just got to get Bosco. I have to have Bosco. Like that's my duo right there. So
Bosco picked me, so we got to hear the reason. I got to know.
I just picked the next oldest, the person that I feel like has dealt with the most responsibilities outside of the game.
Oh, that's a good one.
And yeah, that would be Alex.
before Alex was on the team, you picked me.
That's a good one.
I got thrown under the bus.
But yeah, you know.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the analyst desk. Look at that. All of this beautiful smoke that we have all over in our beautiful stage. Welcome again. I'm Medic, your host. With me are Jess and Bikini Bodhi. My friends, but we have a chat about NIP's victory on map 1. We went on Chalet, and despite the fact that NA is a very strong region, and SSD specifically on this map, NIP still outdid them, Jess.
I think it was just back and forth. I mean, I think back to the time that I saw NIP first rip apart this map and work out how to displace the Solarium stairs take by going underneath into big car garage. I mean, that to us was the biggest innovation of adaptation a team had ever done since the map was reintroduced in its state. And they've come back, and yes, okay, very close game, but strategy was key for both of these teams. And I think that's going to be clear going throughout this entire series that yeah, okay, we might have a frag-heavy map coming up, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily based off eliminations alone. Both of these teams very crucially want to pull each other apart counter-adaptation-wise, and I know in a couple of the content pieces, they both pointed out that they like to counter-adapt against their teams, so they're going to keep doing it here, and they've done it here on this map.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Milos, that was a beautiful fundamental siege from both teams.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a really hard desk for us, especially on this one, because it's hard to really find things to nitpick in this game. Or nitpick.
The man does it. Okay,
I mean, it was really back and forth. It was one run for the others, then the others turn with 2, then the others turn with 3, then the others turn with 3. Back and forth, back and forth. It's just really beautiful siege.
And, well, you see there, Bosco not having the best of matches, unfortunately, but overall, I mean, this is the man that has pretty much not missed any tournament that he's tried to really, the best with the team to go for. Every single time he was a big contender, no matter a qualifier, even back in the day, SI18 coming all the way here in 2021. But what do you think just was the little edge that pushed NIP just a bit over? Because, like we said, this is 2 world champions. You come in, you expect exactly like what Keeney is saying, perfect fundamentals, and that's what we got. But what was that edge?
I think when I spoke about those counter adaptations, the biggest thing for me was the NIP, when we had interviewed them throughout the content, had said, we like to adapt and do counter strats for our opponents, but what we like to do is rely on our own skill first, see if we can adapt mid and late round, and if that works for us, even better than having to use our preset counter strategies, which I think, unfortunately, we saw a little bit of rigidity from the Space Station boys. Yet again, I did sort of predispose it on the pre-desk, and I was like, are they going to come in and be that rigid team that wants to follow that step-by-step? They did. It cost them a couple of those really crucial rounds, and support players like Bosco got absolutely ripped apart as a result of that.
Said Psycho is going to show up. Always shows up. And he showed up, Keeney.
No, but another thing that I think is really interesting to point out, Chalet, across the group stage, I believe it was, had a 35% defensive win rate.
I know, which was
usually
awful.
However, in this game, that was not the case. SSG opened strong with a 4-2, and then NIP goes on defense, and they win most of the rounds on defense. So, I mean, we just saw a defender-sided Chalet I mean, it was a beautiful game. There's not much to say.
Yeah, not much at all. Ugh.
Are you all right over there?
I'm getting old.
Are you breathless that our
I am.
world champions
I
are
see
just...
you
breathtaking.
Too. I see you too, and I see everything that's going on in this, and you leave me breathless, honestly.
Yeah, I look at Bikini and I think much the same. He's dressed very suave today.
I'm on fire under these just every time I look at him. Well, Coastline, yeah, honestly, that's why I have the top button open. Coastline is map number 2. Speaking of heat, Ibiza is the place we're going to go to in this one. And this is a map that has a lot of unpredictability to it. Think something that might go to the side of NIP again, because Pengu and Nintero are like, yeah, you know what? We're not really sure about this one now in Coast.
I actually think, and look, the Space Station boys later can tell us if I'm wrong, I actually think that this is one of their worst maps. Even though they've had some wins in it historically, this is one of their worst maps. And what Ninjas and Pyjamas have done is gone, well, this isn't necessarily our best map, but it's a really bad map for you in recent times. So what if we just jump onto it, see if we can use our superior mechanical skill, and see if that wavers for you. For me, I'm thinking that that's where it is. I could be totally wrong, but just looking at the stats here, I'm like, that's where I'm feeling it's leaning towards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's leaning towards NIP, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an aggressive map. They had the most entries on Chalet.
Yeah.
So if they go into Coastline, and that's the case here, usually teams that get entries on Coastline are the ones that end up getting the upper hand.
Down one Kia, hello.
However, yeah, exactly. But however, I think SSG in the new Coastline specifically, it allows for a lot more potential when you strat, and I think SSG can do something really spicy there.
All right, Keeney and Jess, thank you very much, my friends. Let's then toss it into game. Chalet is map 2. Can Space Station Gaming fight back against NIP? 2 former world champions fighting off against one another. Who can make it through to the semis? Will it be a 2-0, or will we go to map 3? Let's find out with Pengu and Intero.
All right, well, today has been defined by 2 O's. Every single one of the 3 matches that preceded this one, all 2 O's. Will today's final match follow? For Brazilian fans and international fans who might be cheering for Ninjas in Pyjamas, you are saying, yes, God, yes! If you're Space Station fans, you're saying, no.
Mercy, please.
Please, no. Space Station are going to look to defeat NIP on their map to push us to a 3rd and final map, a tiebreaker. And we haven't seen a tiebreaker just yet at all today, Pengu. No.
Hey. No, we haven't, but SSG, Milo said it, world champions, world-class team. So if you're down on a map, down 0-1 in score, well, you have experience. You can surely bring it back. I'm sure that their mental won't be too down the drain and the gutter, but you are going up against NIP on Coastline, and you definitely need your mental to be crystal clear, because that could very quickly become very frustrating if these players are just swinging your face every single round.
Well, let's go on to Coastline between these teams. Ninjas in Pyjamas starting on defense. These teams are both world champions. The defending reigning world champions in Ninjas in Pyjamas. They had a very disappointing Mexico Major. They didn't make it into the quarters or onwards. They were bounced in groups. SSG made it into the quarters and then lost to Empire 2-0. This SSG team has not had the results that it wanted. If you remember all the way back to SI 2021, the one that Ninjas in Pyjamas were victorious in, Space Station had some struggles. They were also playing with Canadian, who came back on the roster for his final set of games with SSG before moving to Dark Zero. So if you're NIP, you're looking for a bounce back to close out the year. A Brazilian team has won every international event thus far. FaZe Clan already qualified for tomorrow. Brazil could significantly up its chances if NIP are successful here on Coastline. While we talked about all of this very conveniently, the operator ban phase concluded. Lion and Thatcher banned on attack. Wamai and Kaid removed on defense. That Lion and Kaid banned out by NIP, Thatcher Wamai by Space Station.
Yup. So again, Thatcher, it has to be said, always banned. It is what it is. The Lion, of course, speaks to Coastline as a map. This is super, super common because you have a global gadget, you can sit on the roof, cut off rotation, still help your team, and oftentimes on this map you'll see defenders being stuck in corners, so grenades are super strong, utility is super strong, but Lion, who if you move, they will know that you did, or if you don't, they know that you stayed. That is very lethal. And we see a yellow 6-pick, and I say that because Skies was showing the IQ. That is a yellow icon operator, and he 6'd into a blitz, which is a yellow icon operator. And I cannot remember the last time I have seen a team willingly take a blitz on Coastline, and especially a team like NIP, and especially on land where your shoulder that is exposed as you're a blitz player will just get shredded by these players in a matter of few seconds.
Remember when the hitbox extended to the earmuffs?
Oh lord. That was a terrible time to be a blitz player or a shield player in general, or Jaeger for that matter, because you have those headsets on and, well, they were a part of the hitbox back in the day, but that's changed since. And that of course makes Blitz's hitbox a little bit smaller. Now, if you're SSG, you can probably expect a rush now, but at the same time, oh, this C4 is a LATAM special. It found a lot of kills during the group stage, but it will not find one here in the quarters. SSG not actually opting to go fast, and it'll be Skies who's the blitz actually using his drone, as he probably wants to make sure that he's not going to take any unnecessary damage early on, as you only have so much. Of course, Bosco on that Finca with the Adrenaline Surge will be able to help Skies throughout this round if damage comes his way, and of course to help him take the engagements that they need. Pink bar being covered by NIP, that is what you need to do as a defender, so well done to them. But this sole player inside of Pink of Psycho will need to find something for himself, but Pino does it instead. Takes down Rampy, that's the buck off the floor. Of course, Hot and Cold still with this ledge, Vertical is still in the hand, Skies goes in, Flash comes out, vaults over this, gets shut down, but the trade from Force is nice. They get the Pink bar that they wanted, but ultimately with a man down.
They didn't trade the right one. They wouldn't understand that there was a crossfire from all the way in office. That rotate that had been opened up in the Pink bar, ultimately SSG's undoing. How do you defeat a shield operator that's charging right at you? Well, How about a flank, or how about shooting them from the side, whether you're on a flank or not? They're exposed portions of that shield, operator. A nice replay there as well on the right side of your screen, highlighting off how that nitro cell connected. In Space Station, though they do take down Psycho, they trail in numbers. Nip right now in a 4v3.
Yeah, and of course that's the special funky blitz off the board. We didn't really get to see exactly what we wanted. I was expecting a super fast push or a rush perhaps, but Pink Bar did get taken into control, which of course SSG can be happy with, but they haven't gotten any more than that now. NIP still has a player inside of office. They of course still have kitchen. There's a guy inside of VIP, and the final guy is inside lobby. What that means in short is that NIP has a very direct line in the map where they control and what they do not control. It's kind of like Lion King, where he's like, oh, you see what the sun touches? That is ours. Oh, you see the darkness? That is the enemy.
Oh, Fultz now under fire through the soft wall, long range towards lobby. Doesn't see Pino as the aggressor in that position, still holding on to it as the drone will scoot on by. These avenues that NIP have created are currently, well, they're really starting to irritate Space Station. 30 seconds to go, and there's another for NIP, but a grenade from Fultz lands. Keeping it close, but NIP still with the upper hand. Only a few seconds burned off of the clock in that one, and Space Station will take a bit of a breather and now go on to drone. And by drone, I mean clone. It's tossed out from Fultz. He's still in a very strong position. 3 kills to his name. 2 more to go. He's inside of the bomb site, but he doesn't have that diffuser. NIP just need to play a game of keep away. 5 seconds remaining for Fultz to get the diffuser down. He's exposed. Who from NIP will get it? If Fultz doesn't fall off, no, he's actually going to stick it. But it's Kamikaze to come up at the last second. See, what they did there, Nick, is they let him marinate. They let him marinate for maximum flavor, and then they took care of him.
That they did indeed, but they did also go fishing, finding some kills of their own. And the one thing to note, when it came down to that 1 versus 2 with the Diffuser being kitchen window, NIP, they played it again super smart, super disciplined, and this is kind of what we did not see much of NIP from, or much from NIP off during their championship run at SI 2021. They would often overextend and be super aggressive, and they would lose their advantages that they had gained, but NIP is showing that they can also be disciplined. FaZe Clan from Latum showed a similar thing when the cameraman joined FaZe again back in March of this year. FaZe Clan went from a super overly aggressive team to a coordinated machine that could do it all. And I will say, if NIP has worked upon one area of their game that is clear to me, it is definitely the fact that they're disciplined when they need to be.
Yeah, this is a NIP team that before had been noted as not necessarily reckless, but very aggressive to the point that was often detrimental. I think the closest comparison for those of you who have been in absolute amazement at what we've watched at a Damwon Kia, Rin is the player on that team that gets this conversation quite frequently. Rin, when enabled to roam around, can be an extraordinarily powerful force and has been topping the charts for multiple games for Damwon Kia. But the big negative to that is that sometimes you play too recklessly, you get too aggressive, you get picked off too early. There's plenty of players like that, and some of them are even in the semifinals tomorrow. As a team, NIP were often criticized for that. When things would go awry in their games, that aggression that we saw as they would roam around the map and directly take engagements, and their propensity to want to push fights that they didn't need to was often noted as a major downside. That NIP is not here right now.
Nope.
This is a restrained NIP that is playing very patient and letting SSG, who are usually that coordinated team, push in to their demise.
It certainly is. We're seeing a similar thing, but this time SSG doing something a little bit different. Rampy is actually droning out office, and they will now take control of the entire side of the map rather than just the one room of Pink Bar. And that's exactly what bit them in the butt in the previous round. So it's nice to see SSG recognizing the weakness in the previous round, but Hot and Cold still finds himself alone. He finds the kill on Julio. That's the injury kill for his team. Puts that in a 4 versus 5, and they've also gotten control over Pink. Pino wants to find it back. He's holding the angle, gets the drone, runs away almost with the wall bang. It was so close. All he had to do was press left mouse button, but it did not come through. Now SSG are actually in a stable position. They've gotten the ground they wanted. Rampy's inside of office, Houghton inside of kitchen. So that basically means that they have now gathered a stable foundation to now work upon.
Well, that opening pick is so crucial, and obviously Oryx is the fastest operator in the game, and on a map like Coastline, where you can get from one side of the map to the other in just seconds flat, can be extremely impactful. There's a clone that goes up, by the way, from Yana, and it gets shot away at by Kamikaze, playing up by Bays, looking at the hookah doorway. Blue bar, well, or sorry, rather blue stairs, cool vibe stairs, is close to where Rampy's positioned, bucking away through Sunrise. Because SSG has that numbers advantage, they can stick somebody on flank watch, and that's exactly where Fultz is. 1 minute to go.
The one weakness from SSG right now is that nobody's on those side repels, which means all this vertical play making the players of NIP move around doesn't really go punished, but as I say that, Hot and Cold has found itself on the repel now, and that gets the kill onto Psycho, and that's what I want to see. Hookah repel has also been enabled from Bosco, and this is exactly the execution that we needed from SSG.
Hotton is still on this position, by the way, but some nice shooting by Moose. He's traded right out, and a quad kill from Hot and Cold. He's still on the window, and Ace is within his reach, but no, it's going to be Fultz to take it. There's no honor among thieves here, and it's Fultz to steal it away. Space Station still gets the flawless round, even if Hot and Cold isn't the one responsible for every kill. The teams, just like we saw on Chalet, now tied at 1 apiece.
Almost with an ace. It was a flawless regardless, but man, oh man, SSG ended up executing that plan quite wonderfully. They had me worried for a second. I want to talk about them not being on the window repels, and the same moment I said that, Hot and Cold must have heard it because he went straight on it, and that got him 4 kills, and eventually, of course, the flawless round from the side of SSG, and this is what they did. They took Pink, they took Office. Sure, Hot and Cold also took Kitchen, found the kill that puts him into the 5 versus 4. Then Rampy goes all the way from Office outside the building, inside of Pink Bar, and start blocking the floor from below. And that is at the same time, I presume, that Hot and Cold ran outside of Kitchen, made his way to the side rappel, and there the magic happened. Speaking of magic, we have found ourselves in the master bedroom and penthouse, where we have these new VIP walls that are now reinforceable. That is one of the many changes that we've seen.
Let's get back to this for 1 second, but Hot and Cold on that rappel. Where are the most punishing angles that you as a defender can use to your advantage to kill somebody on rappel of the big window looking at billiard table? Well, number one, the one that people often look at the most is a very quick run out from Office. Fultz was down there at one point watching that angle, making sure that nobody would take up that map control. The second avenue is to run out the hookah balcony, but once again, because of that coverage of Sunrise down below, Nip couldn't do that. So they had no tools at their disposal other than winning a straight-up gunfight on a small target upside down on a window to dislodge Hotton from that part. But no, you wanted to talk about the reinforcements that we see over in VIP, so for a second, let's focus there.
Yep, so there we are. Now, the one thing to note is that the kite is banned, so that makes SSG's life a lot easier. They can basically just walk up, show up, and open up the wall if that's what they want. But knowing SSG and how they played so far, I don't think they're gonna go for these linear takes like we saw them in the previous map of Chalet. They want to get the map control, they want to get funky and start dancing with the players of NIP, and of course, they want to find the man advantage. Having more guns in the same direction on a map as like Coastline is exactly how you start winning these attacking rounds, but NIP has something to say about that.
Julio primed for a run out. He's far off the site, but Skies reads into that effectively. SSG shutting down Nip, who now through 2 rounds in a row have been a little bit too cute with their first engagements. 2 players from Nip in this position to refrag though, and Psycho will test the long-range durability of that Roni, but no, Rampy felled, traded back by Bosco. Kamikaze down for the count. Psycho persists in this angle. We're only a minute and a half into this round, not even halfway, and the server is getting cleared out. Unbelievable. Pino dropped. He's finished off. Fultz is also finished off. A 2v2. 6 players in the server. My goodness, these teams more dead than an FPLQ in North America right now, Nick.
Oh, that hurts. We all love the FPLQ, and what we love as well is the aggression from NIP. Julio got found early, but NIP, instead of falling back and retreating, they said, you know what, we're gonna send in the cavalry, and all the players from side found themselves fighting alongside the roamers all of a sudden, and a massive brawl occurred. And what we find left remaining is 2 players from each side, which I'm gonna say actually favors NIP because they got the bomb side control, they got the angles covered, and of course, there's no hot breach from SSG.
So the calm before the storm, should a storm even arise. The Oryx of Musi still very much in action and can dash across the map whenever they so choose. Sky sees the pest and will try to take care of it, but instead he'll sacrifice that Rotero drone, 1 remaining. Psycho's still alive. So he can pilot that drone if it's available, but it doesn't show at all. I don't know if Skies has shot it away or not, or if it detonated. Either way, he'll flash his way in. Still looking towards VIP. The Oryx is on the ground, playing that new angle that's been opened up, and a second Rotero drone will now follow. Down goes Hot and Cold to Muzi, so the Oryx not being flushed out by Skies as he's a little bit too slow, not realizing that he's on the ground, and the T5 will chew right through him, as Nip don't want Space Station doing anything after that previous round. A flawless round, SSG? That's fine. We'll take round number 3, and Nip is now once again in the lead.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with those angles favoring NIP in that 2 versus 2. SSG gotta do so much control with so few resources, so few drones, and ultimately they had time, but they can't do much with that. NIP playing it nicely, they had all those angles open up and those soft walls, and eventually, as SSG entered guitar door and bathroom hatch, they found nothing but the guns pointed in their directions from NIP, and they got shut down on the entry. Not much they could really do there, and honestly, it was a nice try. It is what it is. It comes down to those gunfights once again.
Well, there was a bit of overexertion from Nip at the very beginning. Maybe a bit too strenuous as they decided to just charge on in. Julio just waited at that doorway, and he didn't need to provoke the engagement against Skies, but he did, and he got shut down for it. Patience was the word that we used to describe Ninjas in Pyjamas over the previous map, and it must hold true for map 2 if Nip want to be able to seal this deal and book their ticket to the semis tomorrow. Space Station, well, they've still been setting the pace through most of these rounds.
Yeah, they have been.
But Nip are responding so well. If we go back to the rematch that we talked about, that SI 2020 final, Nip were setting the pace in almost every single round, and it prompted SSG to switch things up, which is when SSG ended up taking control and then ultimately winning the World Championship. SSG are still setting the pace for most of these rounds, but Nip are reading into it effectively. They're prepared for it, and they're countering it almost every step of the way.
They've been doing a very incredible job so far, and honestly, surprising me even. And they love this pink bar, the sunrise bar. Psycho plays it most rounds, and again, it's something that if you don't, they'll just lose it straight away, so you have to send a soldier in here. But the soldier that you're sending into this fray also knows that it is a tall task to ask. It's very hard to come out on top, but does he swing the window at the right moment? He almost does. He does not find the kill, but some damage onto Skies. And Skies opening up the blue wall will now make this task even taller than before. It's very hard to find a way out once you're in, which means that Psycho has to fight his way through the entire lineup of SSG with almost no help.
Oh, Psycho deciding that he wants the engagement yet again. He can taste it. He's got some pests that stop the drones from walking on in, and he just narrowly misses the head of the buck before Houghton charges in. No drones available, but that's fine. SSG, they've still got their reticles to guide them forward. First pick for Space Station, as they've now got control of the bars down below and need to turn their focus to that kitchen bomb site.
There you see no way out at all for Psycho. He knew he had to stay because there was no other choice, and he tried to make the best of it. Of course, SSG with the 3rd opening kill in a round, or in a row. But Muzi finds Rampy, and that's the buck off the board. That is a crucial loss, as the vertical play has been limited, as now you only got Houghton on that sledge, which means you can only do stuff from up above.
Well, it doesn't bode well for Space Station that their top performer all of the group stages of Rampy has been decently cold so far in this Coastline map. This is a frag-heavy map, and your fragger is not fragging, Nick. That is not ideal. Adrenal Surge is going to cut out Muzi, who is such an important piece of the puzzle in the previous round. A huge factor is lurking, lying in wait.
Yeah, SSG, they actually managed to get hookah control somewhat, but didn't want to play with the vertical play of VIP, as it was just too much map control for their liking. So they're going to go down below now and look to a side execute from kitchen window. Nick, it's going to get cooked. Adrenal Surge goes out, and Hot and Cold is on site.
They just barrel right in, and Kamikaze greets them, but there's more bodies lined up. They're all going to fall into Pino. Back and forth they go. This yo-yo between the teams, up, down, doesn't result in either coming out ahead. Damage done to both Bosco and Muzi, as the tussling will still continue. They want to take full advantage of this, but Bosco doesn't realize how close Muzi is to the doorway. Fultz in a 1v2. He'll need to pick up that diffuser and will be vulnerable for the time being. He gets caught from lobby, manages to outduel Julio, leaving Muzi against him in a 1v1, as we said earlier on. Very low HP, but where is Muzi? That's the real question. Fultz almost able to pull this off, and he gets off the diffuser, waiting for the retake. Holding the wall, watching that doorway. Where is Musi going to push from? From inside a bathroom, creeping up, low HP. 30 seconds to go. Diffuser still ticking away, and a nice flick from Fultz. Back and forth they'll go, and he gets the kill, once again equalizing at 2 rounds apiece.
I don't know how Fultz managed to win out that round. SSG were seemingly stuck into side waiting for help to come, and once it arrived, unfortunately, it was Fultz left all alone, had to find kills, do the plant, and then of course the clutch. Very nice from SSG, but they've now gotten the opening kill 3 rounds in a row, but they've not won all of those 3 rounds. So while getting the advantage early on, NIP are playing well into it, and what was a nice execute just walking in through side all of a sudden got very, very dire as they did not manage that bump plant until the very end. And now we see SSG, of course, you guys at home watching the replay, but I'll tell you in your ear, Skies 6ing onto the Ying from Hibana. Now, that's a bit different. Hot and Cold wants to stick the sledge. He says, you know what, I got this covered. And Skies now will want to flex his muscles on the Ying. Sky's not having a particularly amazing game so far, 1-3, but honestly, with this double bar bomb site, you don't necessarily need a bunch of heart breach, you need verticality, you need grenades, and when you got the Ying with the smokes and the candelas, you can make a lot of trouble happen very, very quickly.
I was wondering if we were going to see the Ying show up, Nick.
Yeah?
With the likelihood that I thought there was, I figured, okay, we're going to see it. Maybe 1 round, maybe 2 at some point, but when? When is the question? Spacestation very much like this operator. There's a multitude of players on the team that can effectively play the Ying. Skies is going to play Ying in a support-oriented role. Use your candelas, get in quickly, allow your teammates to try and make plays off of it. By the way, as we said all that, a Nitrocell gets tossed out, looking for one of those cheeky angles where you spawn and you get killed by a Nitrocell right away, but Julio is not capable of getting anything from it. So the only plant denial, the only explosive plant denial is now gone.
Yeah, of course, they do have the toxic base from Kamikaze, but that will pretty much be it, because there are no impacts, there are no C4s, and there are no explosives at all. Psycho still holding on to his alibi placement by the looks of it, but other than that, everything has been utilized. Musi on the Warden here could play crucial, but Pino starts it off with a big, nice opening kill onto Fultz, the top gunner for his squad. That's 2 nades off the board, and of course, the Gone 6.
Kamikaze now heading up into Sunrise. The bomb sites are the double bars, and this rampage from Nip off-site working out quite well. Almost out-dueling Rampy through the walls, but he's just not strong enough. Significant damage then, though, to the former top frag for SSG. He's relinquished that crown right now to Fultz, who's on 7 kills. Rampy's still struggling to find some. Both of these players extremely highly rated.
Yep, you see Kamikaze playing sort of default. Now this is a classic position to be in. One of my favorites, in fact. And SSG doesn't have the heartbeats to deal with it. It'll come down to Skies on the Ying. He is pretty much the only brutal force that they have into the executors. There's only 1 nade left from Hot and Cold, so he got the nade, he got the smokes, and of course he got the candelas. But outside of this, we're once again down to all gunplay, and that is once more where NIP, they thrive. Pino found 2 kills all alone earlier in the round. Imagine what 4 players of NIP combined in 2 or 3 different rooms can do together.
Oh, down goes Hot and Cold. So Sky's still there to do some damage. Rampy's been good for both kills on his team thus far, but he hears more bullets go in his direction. Skies will now go on to Drone to try and get something out of this situation. Musi takes down what little was left of Rampy. Nips avenues that we've seen time and time again. So effective. They are brilliantly done, and SSG has no answer for it. So put your shades on, because Skies will barrel on in. Smoke in front of him as he tries to blind players around him, but I don't think he knows that there's top floor control. And Kamikaze, he manages to evade those flashbangs, and just a simple prep, prep. That's all it takes. Down goes Skies, and Nip regain the lead.
Is indeed the sound of that SMG-11 from Kamikaze, and this is one of those things about the execute operators such as the Ying or the Capital or even the Lion and the Monty, is basically that when you pick an operator that is intended to be used at the end of the round for stage 3, aka the execute, the plant, and you don't get there in one piece, you're basically scrambling your players, most of them dead, if not in fact When Ying is the last man standing, you basically pick an operator for a purpose that you never get to get close to or touch or see. And that is the only downside, arguably, of these operators. So you're always playing this managing damage control where, okay, should we use the Candelas in the early stage of the round to get to stage 3 in one piece, or should we try and save all of our utility so that when stage 3 comes, we'll be ready? That is the question that you're always playing around with these operators, and unfortunately for SSG, it didn't work out in their favor, as Ying was the last man alive with no backup, no execute, no plant, and not much to do.
This is a technical pause, as you see on your screen. We'd like to remind everybody that there are differences between words.
True.
Tactical and technical are both different things. A tactical pause is when a team decides that they want a timeout. A technical pause is when there's some form of tech-related complication that is forcing the game to be paused. Unsure exactly as to what is happening right now, but we'll update you as information becomes available. And just like that, hey, all we need to do is talk about it, acknowledge it, speak it out into the wilds, and we'll return to the matchup. So all the tech issues seemingly solved. It'll be another Penthouse Theater defense, the final defense for NIP. Now, when we were talking about Chalet, Nick, we were addressing the fact that it is a heavily attacker-sided map. Didn't end up being the case. It was a very defender-sided map. But when you look at Coastline, the stats are about as even as they come. 49% win rate for the defenders, 51% rounds won for the attackers. That's a coin toss, really.
It really is, and I think it just speaks mainly to playstyle and preference. You can make it work on either side depending on exactly what you're good at, where your strengths they lie. And, you know, if NIP can play the same coordination discipline on their attacks as they have been on their defenses, you can easily argue that, oh, NIP in attack, it'll be just fine. But what if we look at SSG? Well, they've gotten the opening kills 3 rounds in a row, but other than that, they haven't got much going for them. Sure, there was like a quote-unquote clutch from Force, there was a plant, but what if we go to the side swap and all of a sudden SSG are laying out all these problems for NIP to solve? Whether it's the utility, or the map control, or the roam, we'll have to find out, but ultimately SSG, they have so many tools available, and they'll have to choose which ones they like the most and then lay them out on the battlefield for NIP to deal with.
So, final round now for the teams to see if NIP will continue this trend. Are they going to be able to put an even bigger lead that they've had ahead of themselves? Well, the answer so far, for those that have been watching each round by round, SSG should win this. No team has won back-to-back rounds here thus far. And I don't know if it's going to change at any point. There's been a very strange ebb and flow to this map, Nick.
There has, and it doesn't seem to change just yet either, of course. We don't see the Ying this time from SSG, but the Maverick gets pulled out. That's going to keep the nades count high, but also offer up that hard breach utility. We see Hot and Cold right now drawing some art inside the wall. It's just a line. It's not really that fancy, but he could pretty much draw whatever he would like to.
I do like that Spacestation, without taking a timeout yet, has really changed things up. Sky's on a more aggressive role, potentially with the Ashe, but just seeing an Ashe on the board does not mean that it'll be used like the old days of Ashe. Ashe, for a while, was actually a utility operator, surprisingly. No more Hibana available, just a single hard breach of that Maverick. And no can openers, those secondary hard breaches either. Wallbin opened up inside of VIP. The assault on Penthouse could be moments away, depending on what SSG wants to do.
Yeah, but this is where it starts getting difficult. The easy areas getting the wall opened, as NIP did not contest, but now they have shields, they got angles, and they have guns. That VIP wall is also soft, which means that there are so many things that SSG has to worry about and respect. But honestly, they're doing a pretty good job so far.
Voltz's nade gets caught by the laser gate, by the way, as NIP finds their opening pick, and they've been exceptionally good at this. Looking for more than that. Skies having a pretty poor start here on Coastline in a 1v5. A second grenade from Voltz will go out, and he'll chunk a bit of HP off of Musi, who's sitting at an 8 and 3. Still posted up in this spot, though. And a crossfire towards the bathroom through the soft walls. It's now Kamikaze losing some HP. Psycho down, Bosco will follow, and now the remainder of Kamikaze is gone. Pino tossed out a Nitro cell into the corner, connecting onto Rampy. NIP now with the numbers advantage. Though, that Adrenal Surge went off in time. Voltz on a tiny bit of HP with Hot and Cold overhealed. SSG are in an uncomfortable spot with the final 30 seconds still awaiting them.
Look at this discipline from NIP. They're just standing still in corners, but if the fight were to ensue, they can play off one another. One guy on the door, one guy behind the cabinet. They're playing it out together, swinging around for information, but ultimately, the discipline is just too good. Hot and Cold have to wake his way through and find Swarm. Can he fight the second he can? And all of a sudden, it's a 1 versus 1 with 5 seconds left, but no! Pino takes the round for NIP.
A huge double play from Pino, giving the first half to Ninjas in Pyjamas. Mighty behind the team trying to pump them up. As you can see, big claps. Ninjas in Pyjamas only 3 rounds away from qualifying for tomorrow's semifinals. Space Station, North America's last team, look just about ready to be calling a travel agent and heading home. Patience is the word. Discipline is another one, Nick. These are the 2 that we will repeat over and over again as we watch this NIP team tear through Space Station.
Absolutely, and again, yeah, discipline and patience from NIP, that is what ultimately won them that round, whereas the previous early iteration of this roster, I feel like they would have somehow thrown that away, and that is when you, as a fan, as a spectator, as a player, as a caster, as a competitor, you need to stop being like, what is going on? Why are they failing to see these things as we are? But that is not the case for NIP, as they have figured out this weakness and also worked upon it. And that round was the first time in this matchup where one team has won 2 back-to-back. And that, of course, was from NIP, not from SSG. We have a little bit of a re-host going on, so just sit tight, hold tight, maybe grab a snack. It won't be very long, we're almost there, but if you need a refresher or a drink, now's the time to get it, as you won't be missing any action, but we'll be back momentarily.
The grim look on Lycan's face, I think, speaks the loudest of it all. He knows when his boys are in trouble.
Yeah.
And Space Station are in trouble. They had that disappointing performance at SI 2021 after Canadians stepped off the roster too close to the start of the next stage. The roster lock had already gone in. Luke, the analyst, secondary coach for Space Station, had to step in at the last second. Canadian came back onto the roster in 2021 for SI, but just for the event, obviously, well, he'd been enjoying retirement. Maybe sitting on a beach, sipping some adult beverages for all I know. And SSG did not have the best showing. So they go to Mexico, they qualify, and they get beaten out by Empire in the quarterfinals. A 2-0 defeat at the hands of Empire. 3 rounds, about 10 minutes of time, could separate Space Station from another 2-0 defeat, this time in a pretty highly anticipated rematch. Yes, both SSG and NIP have already played each other since SI, but it was a single best of 1 in which NIP won 7-3 all the way back at the 6 Invitational 2021, but this is the first best of 3 that they've played since then. SSG are just not looking like themselves.
No, they certainly aren't, and we all know best of 1s don't actually count or matter, so we're definitely not gonna count that either. 2021 SI rematch? Nah, this is the 2020 Grand Finals rematch, if anything. Also puts the stakes a little bit higher, and speaking of stakes, I mean, you can almost argue that SSG are feeling the pressure, because other than that, I don't know what word I would use for them not looking like themselves. They were looking not incredibly hot during the group stage, so they were looking alright, they were looking good, and they were indeed looking like the best team from North America. But if this is the best that we can see from North America as a region at this tournament, then I'm afraid of what we're gonna see at Invitationals.
Absolutely, and I mean, before we got into this matchup, if Rogue had been knocked out in the quarterfinals by Team 1, then North America would have had 6 teams qualify for SI, because TSM would have auto-qualified.
Yeah.
And then there would have been a last chance qualifier. That happens, 1 for each region, where that's it, that's your last chance. You don't qualify, you don't make it to SI. And those regional qualifiers would have sent a 6th NA team there. Could it be Astralis? Could it be East Coast? Could it be Mirage? Could it be Exit? Could it be one of the Challenger League teams? We don't know. But because Rogue won, now NA is only going to have 5 teams. The region as a whole has had some significant struggles, only sending 1 team deep into the finals every single time over these 3 international events. I don't know what's going on in North America. They had the worst record of any region in this event, in the groups. I don't know what's going on with North America. I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe any medication. I can't diagnose an illness. But Spacestation has long been one of the best hopes for the region, and even they're faltering now. But like I said, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because things could change very quickly. But a defender-sided Coastline is not usually normal, but with the stats that we've seen from the groups, it's pretty well in line with the 50-50 split. NIP have taken advantage of some stumbles from Spacestation, and SSG are going to need to pull a timeout or something, because NIP are just a couple rounds away from victory.
Yeah, and we see Skies from SSG pulling out the Valkyrie, and I think Spacestation Gaming as a team, they like having information to work with, so hopefully this will do work for them. But as it's going right now, where NIP going for a straight take, using these Ibana pillars to perfection inside of base, it's going to limit where SSG can play, and ultimately it will just mean that NIP can stomp right through. And speaking of stomping right through, it's Moosey with the opening kill onto Rampy, but Volts is there to answer back. And it's a 1-for-1 trade that is very short-lived, but SSG still has control down below.
Hot and Cold down below with him as well, so there's multiple players in position to capitalize, but a grenade will land on the Skies. Still, Skies not the best result thus far through this matchup. SSG are going to do a bit more heavy lifting. It looked like it would be a fairly quick execute as well. It prompted Bosco to toss out 2 of those gas canisters real early on. 90 seconds remain, and Bosco has but a single gas canister in his pocket. Now it's Hot and Cold's turn to drop the deck, and a bit of disrespect as a Gone 6 is used to secure, leaving SSG to trail. In fact, Nipper doubled up. Kamikaze walks in, and that's an execution. Volts will join in the afterlife. And it's 5 rounds now for NIP.
Yeah, and there are those Ibana pallets they used earlier on that base wall. Sure, that wasn't the great, like the biggest sized hole, but it does enough to eliminate the possibility and the cover that the wall would normally provide for SSG, and NIP to full effect uses that advantage in their favor. The big window where Pal rolls were in reverse. When SSG were on attack, it was Hot and Cold finding 4 kills, but this time around, it is Hot and Cold getting shut down from that very same position. The Gone 6 area effect, small, but it works. Ended up finding him as he was crawling away, hoping that perhaps he could get revived, but that of course was not the case. It's a nice execute by NIP in his kind of that linear direct attack that SSG tried to approach earlier, but just didn't really find the same success.
I also don't want our focus on NA being the first region to be fully eliminated distract from the fact that NIP are currently playing lights out. Yes, there are issues right now that Spacestation are dealing with. They have not taken their timeout yet. As far as we're aware, no, neither team has actually pulled that timeout button. But NIP, through this entire event, have looked like the strongest team. 5-0 through the groups. They just absolutely ran through their opponents. Now, I mean, it was a group with both Invictus and the Sonics, so I think some people might say those aren't the strongest opponents. Spacestation, I believe, personally, I don't know if you'd agree, Spacestation had a harder group.
I mean, Group of Death was statistically a harder group. There was some numbers being put out there, so yeah.
But NIP still made it look relatively easy. Their only loss so far came to BDS in a matchup that frankly did not matter at all. So why would NIP bother to try their hardest when you can sit back, relax, work on your comms, work on your fundamentals, and maybe save some strategies for a rainy day. And hey, it certainly looks like this NIP team have not really been frustrated. They had some issues at the start of Chalet, but it's been gone since then, and they've been quite cool throughout.
I think having fun is very important, and if you can take that final seeding match just as a fun thing where you know, playing some Siege with the boys, then perhaps that'll also kind of alleviate those stress and expectations as you progress. There is no bigger gift than being able to play Siege purely for fun and just figuring out your groove at a LAN tournament, whereas if every single game just matters so much, it's easy to get buckled up into the stress environment that you're inside of.
That's a Twitch drone now with that unlimited range, finding a Valkyrie camera that was tossed out by Skies. So SSG losing a small bit of their utility. Nipper stacked up for this kitchen execute over towards service. They might want to spread out throughout the rest of the map. They're working above it as well to open up that hatch that's inside of Master Bedroom.
Yeah, this is looking really good for NIP. I mean, they got top floor control in less than half the round, and that means that they can open up every single piece of this floor as Penal will make work. He's got 18 swings left to go, and to be quite frank, with this time left, he could get all 18 out if he wants to. As it's a 5 versus 5, it favors the attackers, and SSG will need somewhere on this map to make a play.
I mean, Skies is on those cams in perpetuity, though, so he can just sit there and feed intel as much as he wants. That intel being fed to Fultz, though, and he's not going to be able to do too much. Gun down is now Psycho with the FAMAS in hand, is looking for a second. They can collapse on the stairs, but Psycho's going to wait for his teammate to maybe have his back. Not long enough. Hot and Cold takes him down and will lose some of the ceiling above him, as there's still some sledging to be done. Skies gets away with his life as well. Julio's next in line to walk into lobby. Does he have any intel? Well, the Banshee's going to go off, so they know he's there, but which side is he playing off of? And will Space Station be able to do anything with this? Neither Houghton nor Skies seem all that interested in engaging just yet, so waste some time, maybe. Let Julio push forward. Skies out dueling Pino with that MPX, now 30 seconds to go. And an Adrenal Surge will guide Nip forward. A little bit of HP to help them on this one. Hot and Cold takes out Julio, and Nip are falling right into this trap in lobby set by SSG. Now a grenade in hand, leaving Musi in a 1v3, and SSG will not let the Brazilian opponents go to match point just yet. There's still some life left in them as they take their third round.
There is. They are fighting tooth and nail, and basically SSG kept sending more teammates over to help this lobby side. What started with like a one-man position became two, became three, and there was even a fourth player assisting with the angles from far away. It was basically Bosco on side, I believe, holding down the fort, making sure that nobody came through stock, and that's pretty much all SSG needed. We can also, of course, assume that those Valkyrie cameras, or the Black Eyes cameras, that they're providing valuable information that they could use to know the whereabouts of an IP, because SSG seemed very comfortable leaving bomb side quite vulnerable.
I mean, we talked about patience and we talked about discipline, but it was Space Station who'd set that trap, sending players upstairs to try and deal with the entry that we saw, and then immediately containing themselves inside of the main lobby, still with intel. And as those numbers began to tilt in their favor, you saw everybody come to the aid of the SSG players. First it was Skies by himself, then Hot and Cold showed up after Fultz died. Then Rampy joined the party, leaving only one on site to hold down the fort. And guess what? You didn't need Bosco to really do all that much, I guess. With that said, that's a successful defense for Space Station. That kitchen bomb site is going to be locked for at least 2 rounds. They might not be able to play it again. If Nip win these next 2 rounds, it won't be available. Keep your eye on that. Instead, near the kitchen bomb site, it'll be a double bars defense down below.
Yeah, they're gonna extend upstairs, and I'm pretty sure the mirror will put down the mirror inside of Hookah facing pool table and Aqua, and this will just solidify the upstairs hold, because in the previous round on kitchen defense, we saw NIP rush up above, start swinging that hammer, and that's when SSG was like, damn, what do we do now? Okay, lobby, let's make a fight happen. They did, they supported it, but now extending up basically means that even if NIP manages to get there, they will have to fight for the ground, and that's where SSG has a stable foundation of which they can build upon, because just hiding inside is not gonna be enough this time.
Well, Nip will try to clear this top floor, as you talked about. They'll start over by Hall of Fame and then head through bedroom. I don't know if they assess an opening down below. That hatch has been very conveniently removed, so they can drop down if they'd so choose. Uzi's all alone right now. I don't know if he's being droned in by anybody. It's Psycho and Pino sitting on drones at the moment. And yeah, he is. So they've droned out luggage and they've droned out lobby.
Yeah?
I'll give Musi a nice long line of sight by 90, looking at the wall into Hookah.
I mean, they're doing a good job. SSG has drawn a line in the map. They're only really holding the Aqua office, Hooker, and of course the bomb sites. They don't care about penthouse at all. They don't really care about lobby that much. But Rampy is lurking down below, making his way around. But Pino being very patient here, just waiting for someone to swing by so he can say hello.
There's Musi shooting away at the wall. More soft destruction to happen.
He's still there.
It certainly appears like Hookah is the bomb site. It's not. It's the double bars below, as we talked about. Missed opportunity from Pino as he was staring through the doorway on Hookah balcony. A member of SSG just crouches on by. Fultz doesn't realize how close he came to dying. A punch and a jump out. He's on the ground, and Fultz doesn't exactly have the angle, but it's a bit of a potato fight. Nobody able to hit their shots. But he's trapped in the corner now.
Oh, no.
He is undoing.
Oh, that's so good. A member of SSG went down into the sauna room, opened up the window, and then peeled Pino off the rappel here with the nade, and it buys Fultz enough time to move away. Hot and Cold finds the opening onto Musi, and Fultz also gets away.
Oh, SSG desperately needed that first blood, and they're going to grab it, but it's traded back relatively quickly. Sky's down for the count. Unsure of what secondary utility he had. Possible that he brought one of those bulletproof cameras, or could have brought a nitro cell. So we'll see. what the remaining members from Space Station will do to answer this. Julio gets killed by Foltz inside a hookah, but a trade back from the window as Pino had holed up on this position for so long. Kamikaze falls, and these teams are just brutally murdering each other. Pino now in a 1v3. He'll have to walk into the middle of the site. He doesn't see either Hot and Cold nor Bosco in that position. And Space Station cleanup. They're doing their damnedest to ensure that we go to a third map, and they've now taken 2 rounds in a row to close the gap between them and Nip to just a single round.
That looked like the least, what should I say, confident, comfortable, decisive NIP we've seen so far. And honestly, I have a theory. I think NIP was trying to, again, change the pace of the game. They went super fast the previous round on kitchen attack. They got super quickly into top floor. They did the vertical play, and they called that brawl inside of lobby. The following round, we see Pino holding an angle for what I believe was about 40 seconds straight. Of course, nothing came out of it. He missed his opportunity, but it just appears that NIP likes playing this game where we go fast, we go slow. Now we're somewhere in between. This round we're everywhere, and this following round we are nowhere to be seen. And it almost looked like a hooker attack and a hooker defense as most of the battle happened up above, but we are in fact now on the hookah defense as previously we were down below in the double bar bomb side.
Well, we're going to see a very similar setup here, I'm sure, on this bomb site to what we saw on the double bars, at least in the way that they employ it. Nip were successful when they attacked this site previously.
Yes.
All the way back in round number 7, and it's where Nip started to inch themselves closer to a victory. That stat that we bring up about whether a map is attacker-sided or defender-sided, let's bring it up again. 49% win rate for the defenders, 51% rounds won, 51% of the rounds won by the attackers. So it's a relative coin toss. What's going to change this? Well, the way that the teams play the map. Familiarity teams have with the map, their setups and which sites they want to go to. And most importantly, the operator bans are going to play a huge role. With the Kaid ban, a Thatcher ban to follow, makes sense. They kind of cancel each other out. Lion and Wamai are the other 2 options that were taken off of the table. It doesn't really seem to me to swing the map one way or another.
I would certainly agree with that. In the end, it comes down to the game of adaptation, dynamic play, and of course, countering the opponent's setup. SSG has put jammers on the walls and bays with ADSs because they want to protect them, but NIP, they're like, you know what, you want to protect them, we want to get rid of them, and they do a really good job. But look at the vertical play from SSG. They can peel off the pillars from down below, and that is exactly what adaptation is all about.
And 2 of those X-Kairos are used, or 4 of the X-Kairos were used by Kamikaze on that wall. Rampy found every single one of them, just ticking away. I remember one of the first Pro League matches I ever casted all the way back in EU was when it was Snook and Nose. Meepy, the coach of Rogue at the time, was playing on Pulse on this map, and he was down in the kitchen. And they had opened up a tiny hole onto that wall leading from VIP into bedroom. And from below, he shot the X-Kairos off, and it was the first time in EUL Pro League that we'd seen that.
Psycho?
Speaking of down below, Psycho will not know what lurks beneath. It's a Nitro Cell in the hands of Matthew Stevens himself, Mr. Hot and Cold, and the Nitro Cell is red hot. Space Station will continue this trend of beating the ever-living stuffing out of Ninjas in Pyjamas as a second pick from Space Station comes in.
And this again, NIP playing the slower paced game where they're kind of nowhere but somewhere around the map, and the information from Skies and the Valkyrie is what got Hot and Cold that vertical C4 kill, and essentially is what shut down NIP's lurking about. Speaking of lurking about, Hot and Cold have none and finds 2! That's a triple kill for him, and the last NIP player standing is Pino on the hookah balcony, and he will have a whole lot of things to go through if he wants to win this round.
Well, this is suddenly a very close match. We might have written the obituary for Space Station a little bit too early because, goodness gracious, they have been able to come back. What does Bikini say? Holy moly.
Holy moly! And they adapted, they adjusted, and they're back in the driver's seat, and they, most importantly, are controlling the pace of these rounds.
Pino has 30 seconds now where he can give his team an effective timeout of sorts. There's no rush for him to get in the building. This round is basically unwinnable. He knows that. Space Station knows that. The discipline that we've talked about for Nip is now here in spades for SSG with 15 seconds left, and Pino's just going to wait and potentially bait out some kills. So a tie game awaits us at 5 rounds apiece once that clock, of course, hits 0. The entry from Nip, not particularly strong. They get boxed out, and now these 3 rounds in a row that Space Station have won, the most critical piece of SSG strategy has been those Valkyrie cameras, and NIP has not had an answer for them. Every time NIP gets in the building, Nick, they have been under surveillance from Space Station.
That they have, and the question then comes, well, do you pick up the IQ or do you just not realize or recognize that this is actually the issue? We see in the replay that the yellow ping did indeed come out from or for hot and cold, which then resulted in that C4, and NIP thought they were being slick. They thought they had found a way in, a gap in the SSG's defense perhaps, but what was just a bait or a ground covered by information changed the outcome of that round. It's very likely that NIP walked inside of Aqua, saw the default camera was not being held or watched, but it turned out the Valkyrie camera was indeed. So sometimes you think you're smart and you got it all figured out, but then what do you know? We're playing Rainbow Six Siege, where walls can be breached, they can be reinforced, you can keep them soft, make some holes inside of them, and you have default cams and Valk cams and bulletproofs, and you know what you have? A tactical pause from NIP. And I say tactical because this was a choice. It was deliberate. They wanted to talk about the game and what's going on, and I think with how the last 3 rounds have been going in SSG's favor, they want to talk about what they can do to take it back into their hands, as they of course want to close this out before the 3rd map of Villa.
I agree with that. Obviously, you are on the razor's edge if you're Space Station, but NIP also finds themselves in that same spot. The one thing about SSG that we touched upon when they played in the groups was how they did not make any of their matchups easy. Period. It was hard. Single time. If you were a Space Station fan, I cannot imagine the amount of heart palpitations that you had going on during those games. If you bring up Group D, which is where Space Station played in, they went 7-8 against Furia, all 15 rounds. They went 7-5 against Empire, all 12 rounds of regulation. They went 7-8 against Damwon Kia, all 15 rounds. 7-5 against Furia, all rounds of regulation. The only 2 matches where they didn't go all the way were Empire and Damwon Kia, and they still finished both of those in the 11th round. SSG have played a staggering amount of Rainbow Six Siege over this entire major. And guess what? The very first map against NIP goes to all 12 rounds. And because it's 5-5, we will need all 12 rounds of Coastline as well to figure out a winner. We might need more.
We may need more, whether that's overtime or it's a 3rd map entirely, we'll have to see. But yeah, the bottom line is SSG has played a lot of Siege these last couple of days. Dare I say the absolute most of any other team present. Well, they'll have to do it once again if they want to see this map through, and of course, they will have to take it to the 3rd map of Villa because they lost the first, that was Chalet.
Drones going out, and there's a grenade from Pino after this timeout in the previous round was taken by Ninjas in Pyjamas. They want to regain some of this momentum after surrendering 3 rounds in a row to Space Station in what was a very tight back and forth. Well, eventually, NIP broke away, and then Space Station broke away. Now it seems like there might be a bit more back and forth to come. The first 2 picks to happen in round number 11 fall squarely in the column of NIP, Space Station in a 3v5.
Yeah, now you have to ask the question, what does SSG do to claw this one back? Being down 2 guns and your top gunner of hot and cold is not a pretty sight, but we also know that if there is one term for SSG, it is clutch. They will always find a way if NIP allows them, so the discipline has to be superb. Otherwise, you might just see that chance slip away.
We talked about the stats now as we're halfway through round number 11. 9 plants for SSG, 11 clutches, was it?
11, yes.
11 clutches and 9 plants for SSG. SSG have 0 plants so far through these 2 maps. 0. And for clutches, they don't have any either. So at this point, something is clearly going wrong. They're being held to a very tight match by NIP, who want now, with a minute to go, to find the remaining 3 players of Space Station. Psycho might be the first one to creep up and do that through luggage.
Yes, that he may indeed. Again, he's slowing down the pace, waiting for his teammates to follow through. But look at SSG, they're on side, just waiting as well. So it's a waiting game. It's gonna be a main push from the VIP side with Psycho being the flanker. So now all they gotta do is set it up and play their part, and then Psycho can sweep them from behind. The timing is everything. The ball comes through, gets shut down, injured on the staircase. It's Rampy. Nate will finish him off eventually, but Bosco tosses out the Toxic Babe, and the White Window Repel cannot help him. Of course, the Nate now found Rampy on the ground. round, but Bosco and Skies are stuck in corners. They're stuck with so many guns in their direction, and eventually it'll be a flawless round from NIP. And they are looking like a team of magicians. They're saying, pick a card, pick any card, but the only card they're dealing right now is the L.
Bosco and Skies, world champions from way back in the day. The very first Six Invitational, actually. Both of them on that old Xbox Elevate roster, if you recall, reunited here on SSG. Nip, what a dominating round right after a timeout. They get those first 2 picks. Once again, Space Station off-site, read out effectively. That grenade, by the way, on the hot and cold, I'm sure he's probably pretty cheesed about that one. It did not look like it was going to kill him, but guess what? It did. We say 2 things. What is it? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and that hand grenade was obviously close enough. NIP now find themselves 3 minutes away from the semifinals tomorrow. The teams that have qualified up to this point: Damwon Kia, Rogue, and FaZe Clan. This has been the year of Latin America, Nick. They won the Six Invitational 2021. It was this team, Ninjas in Pyjamas, who won the very first World Championship ever for Brazil. They followed up in Mexico with Team 1 being that team to be Mexico Major champs. But Team 1 was knocked out earlier. Empire and G2 are not here. There will be a new major champion crowned at this event. And you best know, Europe has 2 of those trophies. LATAM wants a second of their own.
Yeah,
the way NIP has been playing, I gotta say, they've got to be the favorite at this point.
I certainly agree. I even think, yeah, honestly, FaZe and NIP both looking really, really strong, both in groups and now also in playoffs. What is the year of LATAM, if as you so put it, I would also say is the rise of APAC, a very, very underestimated region for a very long time. They never really managed to shine through, but they really, really have at this event in Sweden and previously as well in Mexico.
I like how NIP took that timeout, by the way, and, well, SSG hasn't yet. So I feel like they must be confident in this double bar defense. They must be. Because unless we are wrong, there's been no timeout taken from Space Station. My guess is Lycan is hoping that they will break it, they will get this round, they'll go to overtime, and that's when they'll have time to sit down and really discuss it and push us to a 3rd map. But you gotta get there first. If Space Station are strategically avoiding this timeout until things make more sense in overtime, well, you've got to be very confident in that call.
Yeah, I mean, SSG won 3 rounds in a row of round 8, 9, and 10, so they had the momentum and they just lost it in the previous round, so it might just be the flow. They want to keep that momentum going, not slow it down and give NIP all this stall time. And again, they might just believe enough in their defense that they say, you know what, we can take it without the overtime, we know what we must need to do, and we know how to do it. NIP with a very different approach. Last time they attacked this bomb site, they were going up above, fighting for hookah control, but this time they're going for a more direct approach, opening up the default wall, and they'll start making their way through that and see what they can do on site.
Sky's wary of being pushed from the back, as that focus from NIP, like you said, is quite straightforward. Open up the walls, exert some pressure onto the defenders playing in Sunrise, and then just sweep your way through the site. There's an adrenal surge to go out by Ninjas in Pyjamas, and this round has flown by. 1 minute left. Everybody's still alive. SSG with bodies off-site, waiting to try and catch NIP on this entry. I said there was a reason that SSG are holding out on this timeout, and I'm sure confidence is a big part of it.
Oh, Skies with a nice opening kill onto Kamikaze, and this is the issue for NIP, is that they need to make something happen, and all SSG has to do is sit side in these corners, but Force makes it happen as well, and he finds Moose's feet.
Now Psycho's under fire, and he cooked that grenade a little bit too long. His whole team falling around him. He's on 50 HP, but down goes Pino. Julio and Psycho have been on this same squad for so long, but for this round, it looks like they'll be reunited in the afterlife. Julio will need a 1v5 clutch in order for this to go in NIP's favor. 20 seconds left. That clock will be the biggest obstacle, so at this point, overtime looks like a near certainty. Julio needs to decide what he wants to do next. He'll go through the kitchen, but nobody's really lined up, and he doesn't have access to that diffuser. As the clock continues to bleed away, NIP find 1 kill, but that'll be all, as Rampy says overtime's on the menu, boys. 2 more rounds to settle Coastline.
All right, well, we said that SSG would have to play a lot of rounds, and a lot of rounds they have played. Now we're getting very, very close, and This is where the nerves are at its highest, it's at the peak, and SSG will need to keep up this exact form that they have shown in the last 4 rounds, because they have taken the majority of those and they've gotten the opening kill. Out of the last 4 rounds, 3 of those were from SSG, and that is why they've been put in that great position early on in the round. Those skies in the previous, Fultz followed up from the hatch up above, and it's just a limited direct take from NIP. They didn't really find anything, the nades didn't go through, and those anchor positions from that skies are sitting behind the pink bar and Bosco here in lounge. They were unable to clear them, so it means that they were unable to go for their plant, and they were unsuccessful in their attack. Julie found the exit frag onto Fultz, and of course he found onto Hot and Cold as well, but other than that, there really didn't happen that much from NIP. So they might have to go back to the drawing board, and that they have indeed. They brought out a new operator that we've yet to see in this matchup. It is the IQ, but joke's on you, there's no Valkyrie being played from SSG, but they will give you a Vigil.
Well, I mean, you can find his ERC, that cloaking device, as Vigil will roam around. There's not a ton of gadgetry, really, that they need to be fixated on. You're going to find those ADSs and those Banshees without the aid of an IQ. I like this change from Nip. I'd like it a lot more if it had been done a couple rounds ago. Spacestation for overtime get to sit on defense twice, and that bodes well for their chances. The defenders right now holding an advantage, 4-2 in favor of the defense on both sides that we witnessed. Spacestation will start on it, it'll switch sides to go to Nip. The timeout still available for Spacestation. Ninjas in Pyjamas burned theirs earlier on. They took 1 round, it was a flawless after it. You'll see if they spent any of that time addressing what to do during overtime.
Yeah, I mean, better late than never, and I would say better safe than sorry as well, because if SSG were bringing out that Valkyrie as they so have with great success, you want to be the nice guy and be like, you know what, we brought the IQ, we got this all figured out, and honestly, even if they don't, which is this case right here, at least you took the effort and you showcased that you thought about it and that you were going to do something about it if, of course, the operator was being played.
Well, both these teams exhibiting tons of discipline, tons of patience.
Very much patience.
I feel like we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in overtime. Teams tend to slow down as the match is on the line, take less chances, gamble less.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because if you put your money on everything here, all of a sudden it could really cost you. There's not a whole lot of room for mistakes, and you don't have many chances left. But look at this sneaky, beaky, breezy up above. Of course, Rampy is down below, so he's not quite up here yet. So Musi finding himself pretty alone as SSG is not really content in that top floor.
The barrel of Musi's gun might be sticking out, by the way, in that door, as we talked about. He'll be droned in. Flight of the Valkyries playing now as Musi looks to head down below, but Spacestation start off overtime with the very first pick onto Psycho. Down goes the Twitch, and historically, Nip's strongest performer in this event.
Yeah, and here we see SSG doing good work again, finding so many opening kills back to back and back again. And that's exactly what they need if they want to stay inside of this. Their defenses have been looking better, and this has been a defendered Coastline so far. So, of course, it's not a normal to be in the driver's seat.
This is the exact same issue that Nip ran into on this bomb site last time. They got bogged down inside a lobby, and they had no answer for it. And one by one, they got picked off by Spacestation. It's the final minute now. Yeah. So Spacestation are well equipped to greet them in the lobby. That was Hot and Cold playing over by Security, who can do some significant damage, and Rampy's on the other side, still governing over Cool Vibe Stairs. First pick comes out, though, it's Hot and Cold. Lobby control secured for Nip. They weren't able to do that on the last kitchen take. This is a huge difference.
This time it's not going to be a big brawl, but Foles is lurking nearby as well, wants to find something for himself. He wants to make sure that his team is in a good position. Bosco hiding inside of stock that might come as a surprise to NIP, because the information is dire. They don't have that many drones remaining, and Bosco will be a clutch player in this position.
He's still in that spot. Musi waiting inside of the lobby. Fultz could fall, but now Musi's attention has to be elsewhere. He doesn't know his target prioritization. Down goes Rampy. He was playing by Cool Vibes, so Nip gains the upper hand. On the ground is Bosco. Shotgun pointed towards the opening where you need to run through. The teams trade out, and Kamikaze jumps right in. It's Bosco to clutch. He finds one, but it's the wrong player. Diffuser getting planted, and he has to get to the site. He has no idea where Musi is. Diffuser almost finished. Bosco shrugging off damage. There's nothing left for him to do but simply take the engagements, and he knows one's by the doorway. They're still pinging away, but the IQ crosses to the other side. Wary of the window, as that's where the last player from Nip that Bosco doesn't know about is playing, but it's Musi long range from the bars to put Nip on series point yet again.
Serious point and match point at that, as they won the previous map as well. And oh my, it looked so back and forth that round. NIP, SSG, NIP, SSG. Bosco on an island inside of Stockroom gets left alone in a 1 versus 3. And when he finds the feet of the first attacker in his way, he does not find the second or the third. So ultimately, SSG falls short. And that's again, the brawl in lobby this time around was not there. It was a single player from SSG. Falls was inside security. Didn't manage to find much going for him. Didn't get that initiation or the engage that he wanted. And Bosco, the last man standing, would be so iconic if he were to finish it out. But Moosey with the last kill of the round said, that's not gonna happen. And what do you know? We see 1 IQ being brought, make that 2. Both sides have chosen that in case the Valkyrie does come out, we want to make sure that we have it. And again, I wish we had seen this a little bit earlier. In fact, I wish we had seen this in previous games today, because the Valkyrie has been a name of trouble throughout these couple of games.
Especially for both of these teams who really like to run Valkyrie. Ninjas in Pyjamas' signature operator, in my mind, is Valkyrie, for crying out loud. So now that it's finally being brought out, now that we're starting to see more Valkyrie get played, I don't know necessarily how effective the Valk was for NIP. For Spacestation, inarguably their strongest operator when they were on defense. The amount of rounds that they won simply off of the backs of intel was enormous. And you have to question if the lack of Valkyrie in that previous round impacted them, because so many times Spacestation seemed like they were not prepared for the engagements that NIP presented. The Valkyrie was instrumental in ensuring that SSG knew on their last 6 defensive rounds, hey, we know where they're coming from. I don't know what Psycho is doing with the black eye cams. I don't know where he's put them, but safe to say they're going to hope that their success is similar to what we saw from Space Station. One's outside, by the way. Bosco's already down. They take an engagement early. Ninjas in Pyjamas finds a very big kill 30 seconds into the round, and they've still got more intel coming from over towards that service door.
And now you can feel the pressure if you're SSG. It's match point overtime. It's series point overtime, and they need to claw their way back now, but they're down a player. They are down a man. It is Bosco, one of the most clutch players on this lineup, although dare I say it, as they are all also clutch. Adrenaline surges were nowhere to be seen now, as it's a finger off the board. You're gonna be missing 2 nades and a gun 6, which means you have limited utility, but utility doesn't matter because Pino has a gun, and that gun doesn't miss.
Absolutely unbelievable play from Pino, still inside of security. NIP right now, very disciplined, but they are roaming extremely effectively. And SSG don't have that intel. Now whoever sits on drone for Space Station is going to put their team at a major disadvantage in terms of numbers. And there are too many angles now that NIP can possibly exploit. Rampy and Musi are trying to find each other now as we hit the halfway point in the round, but neither seem to have determined the location of their opponents.
It looks like a little bit of a cat and mouse goose chase here, as Moosey and Rampart, they almost like they know each other's whereabouts. They know they're a room apart, but they don't know exactly where in those rooms that they are. And Moosey, Pino doing that roaming work. Rampart takes the gunfight and wins it. That's going to be big for SSG. They need more of these if they want to stay inside of this round.
1 kill in 2 minutes so far for Space Station. You're absolutely right, and they're still down. It's a 4v3 favoring Ninjas in Pyjamas. Defending the double bar bomb site. You know how claustrophobic that bomb site gets. Once you lose top floor control, it's very easy for a Bucker sledge to sit up there. And guess what? SSG has both of those. So there's tons of soft destruction that can be done to make the lives miserable of NIP down below.
You have to look at the clock as well, though. 45 seconds and counting down. Foles has the diffuser in hand, which is very smart because Rampy and Hot and Cold might need to do some destruction work upstairs. Nades are gonna come through. That's the last one for them. They do have some flashbangs, but outside of that, it's all the guns in IPing prime positions. One by the window, one by the bar. They will need to figure out how to close this out, and Julio leads the charge. Rampy taken down from above, and Psycho takes the fight as well. It's Foles. Last man standing as Hot and Cold is on the ground. It is NIP supreme in a 4 versus 1, but Julio finds the last, and that is the end of the match. NIP, another 2-0. We do not go on the third map. It's a clean sweep across the board, and SSG are going home.
The last chance of North America, and an opportunity to have every single region represented in the semifinals gone. An impressive showing by Ninjas in Pyjamas, who only need 2 rounds in overtime, not all 3, to send the North Americans back across the ocean. NIP are the defending world champions, and while they had a minor setback in the Sweden Major, or in the Mexico Major, it's a major comeback here in the Sweden Major. Absolute domination on so many rounds, but the scoreline does tell the full story. SSG scrapped through so many of those rounds, stitching together impressive showings, but at the end of the day, Ninjas in Pyjamas were just simply too much for them to handle, and now NIP is the second Latin America team to compete tomorrow in the semifinals. North America's time here in Sweden is over.
It is, but I will say one thing in defense of SSG and their fans. They put up a show and it did not go down easy. They brought it all the way to overtime and gave us those intense moments that we wish went the other way, of course, if you're a fan of SSG, but if you're a fan of NIP, you can be very happy with the result on the screen.
Well, that's it for our matchup here, and that's actually it for you and I casting together at this event. I just wanted to take some time to thank you for stepping in, given the circumstances. It has been a real pleasure and a real treat to stand beside a literal world champion and hear you break down the games. We're all richer for having you here.
Thank you so much, Parker. It's been an absolute pleasure learning from the very best in the business. But it's not just you. We have an amazing amount of talent crew here, whether it's the production, whether it's the analyst, whether it's Bikini Body himself, the holy moly Swedish guy on the desk breaking things down as he so does. I want to thank you all for watching, for supporting, and of course for giving feedback. We are using it, working on it, and hopefully you can see improvements from day one. Now here into playoffs. My time is over, but this event has just begun as playoffs are kicking off, and tomorrow it's the semifinals.
So we have the desk to break down that very final quarterfinal matchup. We'll toss to them now.
Thank you very much, both Pengu and Intero, Nick and Parker. What a way to end our day. Of course, two gentlemen that have been brought together thanks to Siege, and here they are today. Well, well, well. More experts on the analyst desk. Hello again. I'm Most the Medic. With me is Jess and Bikini Body, and we're going to go through this matchup that closed it out for NIP despite how close it got by Spacestation. Let's talk about NIP first. Our victors, current world champions, and they make it through one more challenge into the semis. They go, Jess.
You know, I'm glad that we're sort of bringing it up here on round one, because this is where it kicked off in my mind that I thought NIP wasn't going to be playing the Intel game. Throughout this entire series, I was like, not a chance. I mean, you have Valkyrie to play with. Your very first defensive round. Don't kick it off this way, boys. Play strategic. They ended up coming into that defensive half, playing a lot more strategic after that round. But what really spoke wonders to me was you even said it before. You're like, I think they're going to play strategically coming to this map. I absolutely agreed, because I felt both of these teams were tailored towards that. Unfortunately for SSG, I think they've misinterpreted how well-rounded the NIP roster is. They can shoot very well, they play strats very well, and their intel game is absolutely sublime. And when you're well-rounded like that, you're like a triple threat. What are you, like an actor, a singer, and a dancer all in one? That's a hard person to beat.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shame we do not get the decider at all in the quarterfinals. But I mean, we did get to see some absolutely beautiful Siege from NIP and SSG. And I mean, we called it as well. We expected NIP to get the most entries and therefore sort of snowball this game on Coastline. Again, like I said, Coastline is a map about getting those early solo bolos and then translating them into actually finishing it off. And that's exactly what NIP just did. Across this entire game, only 3 rounds ended up the opposite from what team got the entry.
Right, so entries, but you mentioned information game. Kini, there's a certain operator that helps you get information and another one that helps you detect how the operator does it. I'm a host, I know nothing about Rainbow Six, so please explain.
Don't sell yourself short, Miller.
No,
but no, we started talking about, they brought out the IQ NIP on round 13. They had been destroyed by multiple Valkyrie cameras across a few rounds before that, especially that round number 8. They got the opening frag, but then those Valkyrie cameras that were hidden on the floor above, they knew exactly where they were playing the vertical, and it allowed SSG to really counter where they tried to establish that vertical control. And it took Nip a little bit too long to catch on to that, and then they brought in the IQ, and that really worked out for them. Despite them not playing Valkyrie their own, they actually brought it out. They could have been a little bit better at reading into what SSG was actually running, and I think it could have been a little bit stronger in Nip's favor for this game. But yeah, I think they played it really well.
It's funny that you say that as well, because I think the viewers at home sometimes don't realize is that the players don't have an after-kill death cam.
Yep.
You don't see whether you were yellow pinged. You don't see who the player was that killed you. You might not see the C4 and where it came from if it was pre-placed. So it's important that the viewers at home understand, if you don't know already, is that these players might not know for several rounds if there is Valkyrie yellow pinging them in a certain room. So important that intel at a competitive level is not always well known, especially since the introduction of yellow pings.
And that's why intel is so important. You can have a lot of intel, but if you don't know how to communicate it, that's even an extra layer that
You just go, ooh, on yellow ping, on
my
yellow
body,
ping,
on my body,
on my body. I died yellow ping.
Over there.
Premium call outs,
Yeah.
premium.
Honestly, those are exactly what I love to see every single day. Pino, 15-9, 14-10 for Muzi. Pino has performed incredibly well over the past 2-ish years with NIP.
Oh, yeah.
And he keeps it going with Muzi by his side. This is one of the toughest duos in all of LATAM, in this case, Jess.
I think there is a lot of formidable duos inside of Latin America. I was sitting down with Ace, who we call like our resident Latin American like expert, right? And he's like, oh, you should see this duo on FaZe, you should see that. And I also want to point out, my man Hot and Cold, he stood up way too late. Last game wasn't enough, and so I'm sure there's a lot of people in North America who are a bit sad that he was a little late to the party.
All right, well, Jess, Skinny, thank you very much. I'll be back to you in just a moment. Let's have a chat with our victors then. We got NIP on the line. Hello, Julio. So good to see you again. It's been a while. First up, let me congratulate you, future dad Julio. How does it feel like?
Thank you. I'm really happy for sure.
There's so many dads now. Everybody's growing up, Julio. Remember when we just used to play video games, right?
Yeah, for sure. My kid is already in the 2040 lineup Rainbow Six, with Power of Nesk and Cyberzera, Sun, and you're joining the lineup.
Next generation of world champions, and the world champion you are indeed. You go in, you face off against Spacestation. Was this the match that you wanted to have in the quarters, the rematch, from earlier in the year and from SI20's grand final?
Yeah, for sure. They have a really strong map pool, They picked Chalet and then Coastline is a good map for us, but for them too. And it was really close, both matches, but we were able to close. And yeah, we're really happy.
What do you think you needed as NIP to really go above and beyond and take down SSG in this? Because like you said, these maps, they work well for both of you.
Yeah, just play our game, like Chalet and Coastline are really like free maps, It's not like you just need to do a strategy. You can do a lot of new things, in different things, and that's the play style that we want, and it worked out.
And Bikini highlighted one thing is that it took you a while on Coastline to kind of switch over to the IQ, lost like 3 rounds to Valkyrie cameras that were all over, and then you pulled out the Valkyrie yourself in the last couple of rounds. So can you walk me through the decision-making process and how you ended up making that choice?
Yeah, we were not thinking Valkyrie, and let's pick on the last rounds, because they are not expecting Valkyrie because we didn't pick on the first round, and on the attack. Sometimes you don't know you are losing rounds because of Valkyrie, because you don't even know where's the camera, so sometimes it's hard to predict that.
You think it's just worth to ban Valkyrie on every single map at this point?
Yeah.
He's learned his lesson.
Honestly, I agree with you. There you go. One thing I can actually measure up on a pro level with. Well, in the semis, you're already through to there, and you're playing tomorrow against Rogue, EU squad, and they're the only remaining European squad. You got FaZe Clan on the other side playing Damwon Kia. Do you think it'll be an all LATAM grand final, or are you expecting something different?
For sure, FaZe is really strong right now, but Damwon too, and Rogue as well. It's gonna be a pretty good semifinals for sure.
But what do you want to say to Rogue from your position?
Let's just play like we played today, really aggressive. We're gonna play like that too, and gonna be a really crazy match.
They took down the major champions. That's Team 1 down, and Aces, the rest of the squad, they're saying we thrive in aggressive gameplay.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats to them to the 6th invitational spot too. They deserve it.
Yes. Congrats again to Rogue. What do you want to say to all the fans out there, Julio?
Thank you everyone cheering for us. Yeah, we came back stronger this tournament. We adapt a lot and we change a lot of things in game and outside of the game. To get better. We are not comfortable yet, and that's it. Thank you for cheering for us. Yes, let's go. Go Ninjas.
Go Ninjas. Well, for all the fans out there, NIP will be playing Rogue tomorrow in our semifinal. Make sure that you ready your timetable for it. Julio, thank you again. Always a pleasure
to
have you on here, and good luck tomorrow. And we're back. Julio is back. NIP, they are back. Invitational winners, world champions. They suffered a loss in Mexico.
Yep.
And now they're in the semis, and they were looking pretty the whole way through, Jess.
I'm starting to wonder if, this is the way to go for teams. Do the biggest tournament, whether it's 6 Invitational or Major, come out popping, get everything, and then go, I'm going to hibernate until the next event, see how I do, hibernate until the next event. That's seemingly what NIP has been doing, and is clearly working for them. I will say, however, their roster is so well-rounded. We speak about roles all the time and who plays what and who does what. We even do head-to-heads about who plants the most, who clutches. Honestly, I could pick any player out of that roster and do some kind of comparison with any kind of role and be really confident that I could break that down.
I thought it was really interesting when we highlighted the Valkyrie play, that they decided not to really bring it in the beginning of the game, but then sort of take it in later and sort of use SSG's own strat against them. And they took those 2 overtime wins with that Valkyrie. And it was just really beautiful to see that sort of really being able to swap out the way you play in the beginning of the game and then play a different game and beating SSG at their own game.
Even though you get to a point where stress levels are high, decision-making potential gets really lowered in these situations, and still they're able to adapt in the right way. Who was our MVP for this matchup? Well, let's find out together with our graphic that's going to pop up right here. Will there be any surprises? Let's get it. It is Muzi. Wow.
Let's go. Ooh. I mean, you're doing that, but I feel like Psycho has stolen the spotlight for quite a lot of the past couple of months. Last year, you and I were just screaming Pino's name on the buck. I mean, Muzi was the one that came in and was expected to be explosive, and he had explosive rounds, but it was never consistent enough to get him an MVP spot at the end of a series. Now he's standing here, +7 KD, pretty damn good accuracy, and he was engaging in multiple entry fights. He did a good job.
Anybody else that jumps to mind in terms of roles or that really could have been MVP, or at least an MVP in their own role? Well, a general statement.
Anyone that stood out to you? I mean, for me, I just think that Coastline is a map where I'm glad, and again, I know we're harping on about this whole Valkyrie thing, but if you don't ban Valkyrie on a map where Valkyrie does very, very well, whoever doesn't bring that or decides to adapt to then bring that, whether it's in the latter parts of the match or whatever, overtime, doesn't matter, they got it done eventually, is the player that's getting off another operator that they've already practiced with, and then therefore they also need to be making sure that wherever they put the cameras, they themselves are working out who's feeding the intel, who's acting upon the intel. There's a lot of things you need to change, and I'm glad they did it. But in OT, that's a lot of risk to take to change your composition from what you were going to do. So whoever did it is the GOAT for me, because I get my composition analysis ready for tomorrow and work out who's going to be the new Valkyrie for NIP.
Yeah, I think you highlighted that really well. I mean, it is Coastline. Coastline is an extremely aggressive map, and it's a fairly small map too. So having this Valkyrie, it's going to provide so much info. Those Valkyrie cameras can cover so much space on this map. And we saw SSG really heavily employ it first, and that's when it started to look kind of scary. SSG was kind of taking it back when they were employing that Valkyrie, but then NIP managed, of course, to read it and do it the same and eventually close out the game.
Yeah, and indeed they did. Kini, Jess, what did our predictions look like for today?
Yes.
Let's put that graphic up on the screen. And, well, and for Damwon and Rogue, BDS, SSG, I got 2 out of 4.
Not too bad.
I'm happy I got 2 wrong.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to see Rogue actually go to the semis. And I mean, FaZe possibly getting a shot at their first major title. That's amazing. So I don't even care. I got 2 out of 2. I'm happy. 2 out of 4. I'm happy, and I'm happy I was wrong about the other 2.
I got one wrong, and it's the one I'm most happy about being wrong about.
Yeah.
So I couldn't be more happy that we obviously have Rogue. I mean, if BDS isn't going to go through, then I'm like, well, please, for the love of God, have some EU hope.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Rogue. Very unexpected, but a very exciting surprise for me.
Fresh got one.
Did it? Where? Oh,
Hey,
it's
can we
gone.
bring that up again?
Please.
I
I can't wait to absolutely go bananas.
That green. I'm getting out of that green room very.
You know what? Someone's going to send me a screenshot of it and just draw an arrow, please. And I can do the rest with that. Don't you worry.
Circle it in red.
Yeah.
Make it very easy for everybody.
That would be good.
But you know what? Let's recap our schedule and our scores for today, my friends. It's been a long day. I gotta say, 4 best of 3 matches that we went through, and yes, they were all 2-0s, but I think we still got a pretty good show for what it was. I think the semis are gonna go above and beyond it. And actually, you know what? Before we talk the schedule, let's take a look at that predictions panel again. Come on!
They
We
did
got
it.
up!
They did it. You know, I bet you Fresh is sitting back there going, oh, come on, mate. They could have skipped this. I know we're going to have to go to a couple of the pages to double check if anyone else hit the one. Hap. That's I was looking for. I was like, who else can we bundle in with Fresh?
Oh no, Des getting all 4 right. He's not gonna let that.
He's
one.
absolutely. He's
Come
going to
back
want a trophy. Production
Oh,
Des will want a
no.
trophy for his achievement. It's the biggest achievement of his life. So for the love of God, please get him a trophy.
He did manage to brick his computer and then started back up again. So
That's the second computer he's bricked too. So that is another achievement. Not sure he wants a trophy for that one though.
Well, our bracket, what does it look like? Many achievements have been made today. Again, 4 best of 3s. We started with 16 teams coming into the 6 major Sweden, and then to 8 in playoffs this morning, and now we're down to only 4 as Face Clan took down BDS 2-0. Damwon Kia defeated Sandbox Gaming 2-0, and then it'll make it FaZe v Damwon. And on the other side of the bracket, NIP just shot down Spacestation Gaming 2-0. And of course, another 2-0 Rogue, taking out the defending major champions in Team 1, making it 2 LATAM teams, 2 Brazilian teams in NIP and FaZe that await potentially yet another grand final, all LATAM at the end of this year. I don't know, man. It seems like a possibility, but we got EU and Damwon Kia that are fighting for EU, of course, and APAC/Korea are scheduled for tomorrow. We got 2 matches that we're going through, best of 3 series. Once we hit the grand final on Sunday, that'll be best of 5. So we're starting much later than we were on today. It's 16:30 CET. This is local time here in Sweden for FaZe versus Damwon Kia, and second is NIP versus Rogue. Of course, our pre-show will be live around 4 p.m., so expect it. If you want to get all the info, you might have missed the day, you don't have the time to watch it all. We're going to break it down, as always, on the analyst desk. But, Kini, I turn to you. Now, major analyst, pro player for Fnatic, content creator. What else can we add on there? I'm sure that the King of Sweden is going to show up at some point and give you a little medal at the end of it. I'm sure Fabian already has a statue in his hometown. It's yours.
Damn, you're really lacking. He's really going hard on you too. Where's your statue?
Dude, putting me on the spot. No, but I think this has been really enjoyable. I think, we talked a lot about it. I think I'm really happy about my first major performance as an analyst. I think I managed to hit some really good points. And yeah, I started out a little bit nervous, but kind of gotten eased into it now. I feel a lot more confident.
I mean,
as I can't even say confident, Beryl. But no, I feel great. I'm extremely confident. I'm super excited to cover the semis and of course the grand finals on Sunday.
I mean, we put him on the most impressive stage I have ever stood upon in my whole entire competitive Siege career, both as a player, coach, and now an analyst or a talent in total. So that is obviously where the nerves are, right? It's just such an overwhelming presence, I'm sure.
It is. I know it very well myself.
Yeah.
Yes. How are you feeling today now at the end of it?
You know, I've been up for, I'm going to say 14 to 16 hours now watching nothing but Siege. That is my daily schedule between both talent work, content creation, everything else. You know what the grind life is like, so I can't get enough. And as a result, tomorrow I'm going to get up, absolutely swing through it more. And I asked if we could bring Parker in Tero onto one of the desks tomorrow.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. You know, he can stand here, though. We can put him at the end. I mean, you can't avoid it.
like
I've already
behind-
got the thumbs up. Production's like, yes, in my ear right now. We're bringing him on. So yeah, I'm bringing in Terra on because I like him. He's great. Yeah, Milish is
Poor
really
misguided
disappointed.
soul. Poor misguided soul. Well. Keeney, Jess, thank you very much for being on the analyst desk with me here to kind of wrap things up in our day. But, we had Fresh on here, of course, who
Oh, yeah, we
sitting
forgot to say
downstairs,
something about him.
sitting downstairs, chilling, waiting for all of us to head back. We got Dez, Ace, Hap, M, and Taro, and of course Pengu, who, much like Keeney, stepped in for his first event, and everybody's doing a great job here. We are live again from Gävle in Sweden, and we are so happy and proud to be part of this production. So, tomorrow we'll be back, 16:30 local time CET here in Sweden. We'll go through game number 1. It's Face Clan versus Tammo and Kia. So I hope you get some time to rest up, relax, play the test server in the meantime. Definitely some things to check out on there. And myself and the team will be back with you in the afternoon. Until then, take care. We love you so very much. Goodbye.